Uduasha city, where the sun is a mirror and the moon a shadow. 800 years ago, the gates of death were broken by the Emperor Immortal. The 5 key bearers, however, had already unlocked them and walked right through. It is in Uduasha city they dwell. Now, the ghost field breathes next to our reality, lit by the eternal flame of the well of Udu. It is a second skin, a place where thought and will struggle against gravity and light. In other places, the dead congregate in the ghost field, but in Uduasha, the well city, the hell city, they fall straight into the flames. See its glittering districts: Kshitijpur, where the rich plot to buy the horizon; Bunda West, where the refugees of 2 different nations flock; and Pasarhandu, the vertical maze of market and murder. And here is Udepat, where the ceaseless temple resides. Its inhabitants, a family, a snake, and a god. The temple has stood since before the gods of this world were forgotten. Watch as it turns the wheels of revolution. Welcome to Desperate Attune, an actual play podcast about people who take risks so they can survive against the odds. Hello everyone, welcome back to Desperate Attune. I come to you today with what is going to definitely be a firecracker of a session. Almost literally. Haha, did you see what I did there?
Lol.
I did, but I didn't want to acknowledge it.
The fact that lol has become a word in and of itself that means the opposite of the acronym it once stood for, I think is just emblematic of the civilizational decay we find ourselves in.
Lamau.
That's a beautiful way to start an episode on.
Good. I'm not gonna lie, I'm already feeling big snake feeling inside me, so you know.
Do you need to go to the bathroom?
No, because I'm just gonna shit all over your characters. Ha 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 ha! I will say that I am in some pain, less than I was maybe an hour ago, but it does mean that, like, if I make any dumb choices, I'm just gonna blame it on that. Welcome back to Desperate Attune, everybody.
Hello.
Desperate to attune to Electric Boogaloo. Too desperate to attune Electric Boogaloo. With me, as ever, are my wonderful players, Aadiyat.
Yes, hello.
Joan. Emma! Oh my god, I hate myself. I thought to myself I shouldn't.
I'll take both. Hello there.
Hi, Emma. You know I love you and I don't mean anything by it, right? Because it's terrible.
I do know this.
Good, I'm glad. Zoheb?
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
I'm okay. And Prince?
Well, hi.
Oh my god.
I didn't know we were doing silly intros. I would have said something more interesting then.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I mean, greetings.
So, I will remind everyone just before my recap that the image we left on was, well, the image that we left on 2 episodes ago was that Vickers had challenged the snake to a duel to the destruction. Presumably death is not a problem that the snake faces. And had told it that even if it thinks the vulture stood no chance against it, such was not true of Joan. She did not yet know, of course, that Joan had abandoned her previous form of the chariot and had taken on a new name, the Riot Crow, in her meeting with Avrad and Kuset far below Uduasha, deep in the bowels of the well. She met the Mage of Stars, so-called, the most powerful sorcerer in Uduasha, if not Iruvian, who keeps eternal vigil on a door that he is convinced guards some world-ending danger. And he and Joan had a conversation about what exactly not just lay behind that door, but also what was
appropriate to do about the kinds of dangers that they both knew existed. And after some very, like, I think, profound self-reflection, Joan, I think, turned away from this crusade, which undoubtedly, if it had succeeded, would have ended in the deaths of, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and if it had failed, would have definitely resulted in the death of one person, Joan. But it also lent her some respect from the major stars, and he said that in her time of utmost need, she could call upon him, and then he warned her that he no longer answered calls in quiet voices. This may become relevant today, and I think that where the camera kind of cuts in now is we do the classic thing that I think a lot of TV shows do when they do, when they take a break, right? When they're like, oh, cliffhanger, and now something different, is we actually pick back up from the something different, not the cliffhanger, right? So Joan, just tell me like a little bit about how you get back to the temple, how you kind of deduce what's going on, and why you make the choice to go into the Sanctum Sanctorum and not, I don't know, try and help Zajidan.
All right. But I think the answer to how does she get back is very simple. She walks. Because she is far away from any tools that you might have on her to travel faster. So she arrives in front of the doors of the temple, and like a person arriving home, she will just walk inside. And I do not actually know what she will see there.
Well, temple's in a bit of a state. Everyone in the temple is in one of two places. The first place is in this sanctum, in this healing nexus that Zajidan has projected around himself in order to help Miraz. And in that place is Miraz, the golem, the glove box, as it's called. Padmapriya and Padmamukhi are in there. Triparna Sen is there. Abbas is there. And they are all very concerned about helping Zajidan come back from what appears to be this coma.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, Vickers, an alternate version of Zajidan from a different parallel reality, and a past/future version of Freya are all within the Sanctum Sanctorum, facing off against the snake. And, Vickers is, I guess, as you enter, about to challenge it. Like, this conversation is happening, right? So we will see maybe even those things intercut.
All right. Can she see the healing nexus? Is that in the Great Hall, or is it elsewhere?
I think I was discussing having that happen in
Yeah.
Miraz's lab.
Yeah. All right. So that's far away, or at least
Yeah.
not the first thing she sees. Neither is the Sanctum Sanctorum. But if the snake is returned, or has appeared in some way, I imagine that she would be able to sense it.
Yeah. So what eldritch, like what occult sense, what has changed in the temple's air, like that you can pick up?
I think it's almost like a smell.
Mm.
That kind of papery smell that a lot of snakes have.
I think to someone else it would sound like wheels turning, but you don't. That's not really the sense that you use, right?
Maybe it is. Maybe it's also kind of like the vertigo, like centrifugal vertigo, of like feeling as if this place is turning, or as if you're standing in the middle of something that is turning.
Yeah.
I think a combination of these things.
Yeah. Okay.
And she has come here having just spoken to the major stars about the serpent and about how it is an outflow of the flame that is perhaps more of an immediate danger than the flame itself. And it seems to her like now that conversation is falling into place more than it did there, because apparently it is now returned, and it's the perfect time for her to go meet him. And so she will turn to the Sanctum Sanctorum and go inside. I don't know if she actually encounters Vickers there, or if they are in a Vickers and the ultimate version of Zajidan are in the ghost field somehow.
Yes. Although I do think Vickers is kind of, summoning you. Somehow Vickers knew you would be here, right?
Mhm.
So maybe she is... I don't know exactly how this would work. Maybe she is calling to you in some way from the ghost field?
It's a supernatural sense of solidarity is what it is.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
see.
I mean, I joke, but honestly, that sounds incredibly cool. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, and also very concretely, whispers can just call
Yeah,
ghosts.
true.
Yeah.
No, Vickers is not necessarily a whisper, but that ability exists, and she might be able to tap into.
Yes. I'm doing the reverse. I'm calling you into the
Yes.
ghost field.
Yeah. And all of you have ghost echoes. Like mechanically, like fictionally, the ghost key is like how we've used it. But yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Like it's say her name 3 times, and in a summoning circle, she will appear, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
That's not what you should say. That's not what you should say. What you should say 3 times.
no,
Mm,
no,
Go on, say it.
No.
I should mention for the listener that Zoheb has put into the chat a truly cursed phrase that we had all thought we'd seen the last of, which is, "Come on and slam, welcome to the jam." And I've
This is how you call someone into the ghost field.
this, how potentially you were going to call Augustus Khan into the ghost field, but I don't know if Joan's going to respond to this.
Yeah. See, everyone has their personal calling, like their summoning spell. So what's Jones?
Oh god.
It is the jam religious lingo for
Indeed.
Yes. Yeah, that is a good question. How does one summon Joan? What is the good? Okay, well, Vickers has access to her past memories too now since the last session, so I suppose she can actually know some things about this. Yeah. So, yeah, I think I'm calling you. Like the call that you sense, right? Is not Vickers' voice. It is the emergency whistle of a train. There's a monster on the line.
Yes, excellent. Yeah, if I could do that noise, I would do that noise, but I can't. Please imagine it on my behalf.
Uh-huh.
And I guess, Joan, you know exactly where it's coming from. It's coming from the Sanctum Sanctorum. You've been in there so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time to follow.
And I think that, like, when you enter, so we've described it as the stepwell, right? And when Vickers descended, she found herself in this place summoned by the snake. When you come in, Joan, I think you don't see the stepwell as it has been, like, all of the times before, right? And I kind of it's very Elden Ring, but I think that it is, like, in some way upside down. It's like that tower in Elden Ring. I hate with a passion, but I do think it's very, like, well designed. Where, in fact, it seems like the snake is at the top of a pyramid, and Vickers and someone you recognize as Freya, and someone you recognize as Zajidan, but only, like, after, like, a couple of seconds, all below it in that, like, below it on the pyramid looking up. I don't even think, by the way, this is how they are perceiving this. I think they are perceiving it very differently. This is how you are perceiving it in that place. And you know that the snake is so incredibly focused on Vickers right now that it has not noticed you yet, which is incredibly difficult to do. So Vickers must have really done something to annoy it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can't have a situation where my friends are about to be eaten by a snake, because I do very much feel like that's what's about to happen.
Yes, yes, you are correct.
Yes, Joan's impulse now would be to not to draw its attention away from them, but to like make herself known, both to them and to the snake.
This is when Vickers says, "I know someone who can," right?
Yeah, kind of also as a way to like empower that implied threat of like, hey, it's not just us. It's not just these two.
So I think that like you appear and the snake, which is like incredibly unamused, sees you, Joan, and the full weight of its attention falls on you. I think that like you are perhaps the most apt person to try and resist this feeling, right?
Yes.
I think it is still an act of resistance because it is that authority that is cowing you into submission as you appear. It has not said a word to you. It doesn't respond, but you know, you can feel it telling you to kneel.
All right. I will resist with resolve. I have a flaming silver lamp, so I do get +1 to resistance rolls.
No, 100%. You should get at least 1 die fictionally, right? So I'm glad that the ability gives it to you, because otherwise I would have just been like, from everything that happened, if you just mark a Riot Crow, you should get an extra die. But I'm glad that the ability does it, so you can mark Riot Crow for something else. 6. 2, 6, 1. I mean,
it's a 6.
Snake makes you. It focuses its entire, well, not its entire yet. Let's be real. It's still the avatar of a god. You're still one person. Really tries to hammer you into the ground, and you just you just refuse, right?
She takes a breath, and because the electroplasm in her lungs has been ignited by the fire in Skurlock's quarters, it like kind of the breath makes it glow up like a coal, being oxygenated.
Incredible.
I thought that the moment of your return would fill me with joy, that I would revel in seeing you again. I am sad to say it is not so.
I think the snake says, "You were always my favorite, but now you have become just like the rest of them."
Why have they angered you? And she asks a question to the snake, but she looks at Vickers when she says it.
Vickers, as she hears this, she looks up, kind of knowingly at Joan, and I think there's something definitely different about her, because Vickers has her memories of being the vulture, of being the destroyer back now. So there is like a more timeless, ancient quality to her. And she simply says, "His Majesty thought himself more important than family."
And yeah, you see the snake narrow its eyes at you, but it's not gonna. Why would a king bother to answer a peasant?
I can answer that. His Majesty may be a king, but we are the Chakrabortis. The wheel turns for us.
Excellent. And I think that this is so. There's going to be 2 things. I'm first going to start at 12 o'clock, which is going to be the wheel turns on the snake. Until you fill this clock, it's going to be a problem. And the second thing I'm going to do is make normally what one does is the clock that is going to hit the players is like only 4 ticks long, because you're like, haha, fuck yourself. But A, Joan has done a hilarious amount of work here, and B, so has Vickers. So it's going to be a 6 clock. And I think the 6 clock is just going to be called reset, because if the 6 clock ever fills, and I'm happy for the Chakrabortis because the wheel turns for them to tell me, but either all of your progress on the 12 clock disappears, or it acts against you and immediately someone will suffer level 4 harm. Right? And this doesn't mean that like other level 4 harm won't happen. It's just that like these time powers that the has is very capable of completely negating all of the progress that you've made, which is why you should never let that clock fill in a very real way, right?
I think what happens is that if the clock fills, one of us is replaced with a version of ourselves that is allied with the snake.
Oh.
I don't know why I bother saying things, because I just need to open my mouth and then my players will just do it for me. This is great. Yes, that is what happens.
That is how you play this game.
It is how you play this game. Yes. So I think you feel this. You feel the snake say, the wheel turns for you. It turns because of me. And you hear the rattle as it coils and prepares to strike. And now we are going to cut out, because unfortunately this is not the only problem all of you have, right? So Freya overindulged her vice role. We didn't bother putting it on screen because it wasn't super interesting. But as a result of the overindulgence, I think that what will happen is that we see the Inspector Constance Constable, whose imperial mandate has been to try and track her down. We see what she's been up to for the last few days. Now, the royal Johannes Sophie, who had been like genuinely very seriously mauled, right? Like they had suffered a profound injury to their spirit. And like, though you had saved them and their sister, to be honest, their sister has spent most of her time taking care of them in Abithat's hospital. That's why she had just not been around, right? But I think that the Inspector Constance Constable, who is diligent, who follows every single lead, has found them at the hospital. And unfortunately, I don't know if any of you necessarily noticed that Maud has been around less and less and less. It's because the inspector's been taking up more and more and more of her time, and she doesn't want to make more trouble for you because you're going through a lot, right? And now what is going to happen is that the three of them are going to come back to the temple. We see Johannes in a wheelchair. I think Sophie is pushing them up these streets. Uduwasha, by the way, I think some of it very, wheelchair accessible, some of it very wheelchair inaccessible. I think Udaipur is one of the places that's more accessible. But they are doing this because we see Constable walking with them. She's got a warrant, and in the face of an imperial warrant, none may say a word. And unfortunately for you, not only does she go into the temple, nobody there, and Sophie is calling Sophie. Maud is forced to say something like, "Well, maybe they're all out," and in fact, it's like, "There's no way that's true," and they are now like heading to the lab. They will appear in about a second. But before that, let's look at what is actually happening in the lab. We have this this gizmo, this spirit transfusion device. You hooked it up to yourself on the glove box.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also a candle to channel some of the spirits from the well into it as well.
Yes, correct.
I mean, I have no idea, but I would assume that if Constance Constable walked in, the least suspicious thing in this room would be the candle.
Yes.
You are not wrong. I'm sorry to tell you that, the most suspicious thing is this weird, golem thing that you packed into yourself.
Doing something. Could be flaring wildly. You don't know that. Maybe it is.
That this is a process. I have invented a machine that can reverse hollowing.
Yes.
And I have
also,
a candle onto it.
Also, it's very important to remember that the glove box is stolen property, and she's going to write you up for that. Good luck.
So there's multiple things happening here. Improper lab safety, stolen property, an illegal device that reverses a sacred ritual that is primal to the state religion, things like that. There's a few problems. No, I'm not one to decide what priority Constance Constable attaches to these problems, but
I know that the important thing to remember is that Abbas is helping with the situation.
good.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh
indeed.
dear. Okay.
Indeed. So,
We did do the process. So like, what is the outcome? What happens? Right?
So I think what is happening is that as you start this, the excess energy from your past and future shrine builder selves is being filtered through the glove box in some way and being put into your father, right? And in fact, it's really good that that your father has the field that kind of nullifies the shrine builder's influence, because it means that you can channel the energy without like transporting the personality, right? Because otherwise, I would imagine if you do this, the shrine builder just takes over your dad and goes, "Well, I'm two people now." So that's really useful. But I think that what is also happening is that as you like undergo this process, what you did was invent a machine that can do this. You didn't invent a machine that does it painlessly or without side effects, right? So I think that it is a role to see how little harm you take or how much you want, right? So like the thing here is, let's say risky standard, you can take level 2 harm in order to start the process on like a 6 clock, right? To get him back up. But it's very reasonable for you to say controlled limited, very reasonable to say desperate extreme, like all of the levers that you would want, you've got those things. And you can similarly like change the fiction, but like my imagination here is the machine does this. That is the incredible thing that you've managed, right? I've not yet done it in a way that like it's free.
I think a resistance roll of some sort is the best way to mechanically
Sure.
figure out how bad it
Yeah.
is. Yes, fortune roll. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. A fortune roll using a resistance dice pool.
Yeah. In that case, it seems like resolve to me because I don't think it's prowess. I can't be insight. I think it's resolve. It's about like just like gritting your teeth and getting through it through sheer force of will.
I will invoke the ability Sacred Geometry, which gives me +1 die in pursuit of perfection. Because I think like Mira's, like even as he's putting this together, it's possible that Shrine Builder would tell him, no, if you, I mean, at least make the circlet velvet lined, things like that. Make sure there's a comfy chair.
I guess in fact, I don't even think it is the shrine builder. It is your memory of what the shrine builder would say, right? Because Zajidan's control here is absolute. There is none of that influence coming through. But you have unfortunately a good enough like memory.
Yeah.
You've been through it so many times, right?
I think it means that I don't get possessed, but I do have access to what I have learned,
Right.
And like the past memories to an extent. But I'm still I will be in charge of myself.
Yeah. And please tell us what you rolled.
I rolled a 6.
Exactly.
A 6.
So I think that with a 6, you manage to do this smoothly enough that it goes straight from the excess energy into Zajidan, right? You are merely a conduit, and you are, in many ways, the perfect conduit. Who better to for the spirit energy to pass through than the son of the man to whom it is being given, right? You were born of him, and now he will be healed of you. The other thing that the 6 will give you is that you will be able to see the door open and understand exactly what's going on, which is Imperial Inspector, dressed in her full regalia, enters the room, sees everything, and declares, "What in? I demand you halt immediately. Human experimentation. No such paperwork was filed."
What's all this then?
Yeah, it is. Hello. Like she sees this, and both Maud and Johannes are incredibly, because the other side of Maud not being around as much is that he has not seen Zajidan go down or any of this stuff. She's been so busy like worrying about this. It's the first time either of them have seen this either. So yeah, I think that the inspector turns up, demands that you stop, and if you don't stop, we'll do something else. In her mind, if you don't stop, actions will be taken. Triparna Sen is unperturbed. She's just doing her monitoring impressive results, right? Whatever.
Oh, well, I'm here, and so stop right. No, how dare you barge into our temple like this? Who are you? And I demand an explanation.
He's seen you before, right? You guys had a
Yeah,
nice
yeah,
chat
oh, yeah.
about.
Oh,
You
we've
guys had a nice
chat.
chat about how she should use the full extent
Oh,
of
yeah.
her inspectorate powers to not take any bullshit from any Iruvians.
That's true. Yes, indeed. Does she remember this?
1,000,000,000%. You think she forgets a name or a face? She's imperially trained to never do that.
Abbas's advice is really paying off now.
Yeah.
Indeed.
He's a great student.
You only have to show her something once before she picks it up, And yeah, I mean, you need to do something right now, or she is going to add a weapon and use it.
Okay. But before we do anything, just so that I'm super clear.
Mhm.
So we have done the process. The life force has been transferred into Zajidan, and nothing seems to have happened yet, right?
No, to some extent, I think this is because on the other side, this is being explicitly interfered with, and we know this. So I don't want to give you this success, and then we have to see on both sides, right? So
Yeah,
I
a
just-
battle
I-
rages in his soul.
Yeah,
Is what
that's
is
fine.
happening.
I just want to know what Miraz sees. He sees nothing happens,
I think
right?
and this defies explanation. This should work. All the
Right.
theory suggests it, and you're a genius in this way, right? So
Okay, so I tear all the shit off my head. And normally, if an inspector walks in, I'd be like, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
But instead, I just ignore Constable and rush towards Ajidan and try to shake him and kind of Father, Baba, are you in there? Wake up! It's okay now. It worked. It must have worked. Did it work?
So no response really. You appear to be shaking He's breathing, not dead. You appear to be shaking someone who is alive only physically. And I think Padmapriya is going to rush to you and say, "Don't shake him so hard." And then Padmamukhi, by the way, Abbas, if you do nothing now, Padmamukhi is going to try something and she will get shot. She's an expert.
She will get shot.
Yeah, by the inspector, because the inspector's not going to take any shit. And Padmamukhi is an expert ritualist type. She's not an expert bullet stopper.
Yeah, I think okay. So, Inspector, please, this is a very delicate medical operation that you're interrupting right now.
Yes.
Okay, we are all here. We're not going anywhere. Just stay where you are. Give us just a few minutes.
The background Miraz is violently shaking his father.
While one of the women who raised him is like, "Don't do that. You could break something." Yeah.
And then I do actually let him go when I'm told that, almost he's radioactive, and I kind of back off, confused and looking around.
And I think I want to be clear here that she's not being unkind. So I think when you do that, she grabs your hand, she's supporting his head, and she's looking at you and she's saying, "Be calm. This is an experimental procedure. We don't know what could happen. Maybe it'll take a couple of minutes. What is really important is that we make sure that we keep him as stable as possible, right?" And that's she's whispering this to you. She's also very worried because her sister is approaching this woman with the intent to do something. And Abbas, this is a role now, and I think you are absolutely in a desperate position, and you are going to have limited. You will start at 0, my friend, because this woman doesn't give a shit about you saying. Was it? Please stop. This is a medical procedure. Just give us a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm saying that we're not going anywhere. You can arrest us in 5 minutes after we've figured out what's going on with us.
No, we can't, because the procedure clearly states that arrests must be done in a speedy and deliberate fashion, and delays are not to be tolerated. And I'm not going to tolerate delays, right? That is the internal monologue. So
Okay.
yeah, and you're in a desperate position, and the desperate risk here is that Padmamukhi is going to die. So like
I'm okay
yeah,
with that.
and so I also want to be clear that like I'm not even bothering to threaten you. I'm bothering to threaten the people you care about.
So he doesn't care.
Yeah, indeed.
It's an interesting way of like reverse psychologing the GM.
Yes.
I don't even care
okay.
about that consequence, actually.
Okay, desperate limited. Oh, oops! I didn't wait for anything, which I should have done.
You should have done. Padmamukhi. I mean, you should resist this, but let's be clear. Prior to the
I
resistance,
should. Yes.
Padmamukhi turns up, eyes flashing, for a moment completely serpentine. She has turned, because we know that she's been experimenting with divine essences, and she turns into a snake and she doesn't turn physically, but it seems like that. Whip smart, about to like sink her fangs into the inspector, and she very calmly, the inspector I mean, pulls out her pistol and shoots her in the head. What are you doing to resist this?
Mhm. I mean, I've got to stop Alapana somehow, right? From like doing the thing that she's doing, and I don't know what. Like maybe just tackle her to the ground, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
Like no, don't do it.
Mr. President.
Yeah, get down. Get down. Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like a prowess.
It does seem like a prize. Okay.
One.
Ooh, okay, that did not work at all.
That is.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
everyone.
a trauma. Now, I will say, when you're one stress away from traumaing, it's almost good that you rolled a 1 to resist, because like, imagine all of that stress you might have taken otherwise. Now you don't. It's a trauma anyway, right? Great, well done. This is how you play Blades. I think that what happens is that you get in the way, you push her. She's incredibly well trained, and like, you know, an old man pushing her is not something that she is like unexpected. She knows that this could happen. I think what happens is that as you push her, you from behind her, you see Maud with this fire in her eyes, because she also was unwilling to let this happen. Right? And as you push her down and she's like swiftly readjusting, you know, taking another shot, what she's not expecting is that you've seen Maud and Maud has seen you, and the two of you are like, I'm not going to let this happen. Right? I think what does happen as a result is you'll take a level 2 harm as she like bashes you in the face, and B, I think that she's now like on the floor, but you cannot convince her, right? The reason that like the Esper Zero sway was still 0 is that if you had done some stuff, you could have gone up to standard, right? You have lost this opportunity. Like, she is not going to listen to anything you say, because one of you nearly tried to kill her, another one aided and abetted, a third, you know, like got in the way.
Okay. I think in the background, Miraz is like, we need more power. And he's just kind of like walking around aimlessly, like in a complete it's like he has tunnel visioned on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
He has poured everything into this, and then it didn't work. And now he's kind of like in the sort of like shock phase of like, okay, how can we make this work? How can we make this work? And I don't think he's even noticed anything else that is actually happening in this room.
I think that like as this is happening, Tripadna Sen was in this room. She was very unperturbed, right? And I think that like the second that Abbas got involved, then she became perturbed. I think that she is planning something, but I will admit that I'm not like such an incredibly good GM that I can keep track of all NPCs at all times. So what I'm going to do is use this moment to be like,
yeah, don't worry about it.
And I think, oh yeah, Tripadna's going to do this thing. It will have been it. That's the plan all along. Don't worry about it, right? Like she's planning that. She's like taking this opportunity. She's in a lab. She's a doctor. She knows like she knows some chemistry. Something's gonna happen, right? I think that like now we're gonna cut back to Sanctum Sanctorum as you are trying to figure out what's going on with your dad and Abbas. You are on the floor, like wrestling with this woman, knowing that like she doesn't hate you, by the way. None of this is personal, right? She's got a job to do and she has a duty to carry out. That's why she's here. She's not here because she thinks she's better than you. She's not here because she thinks, I mean, she does think she's better than you, but she doesn't think that like Akarosis are better than Iruvians. You know, she doesn't think that there is a certain kind of like way of being that is superior to all others, except that she knows that you have to do the job.
Right. Yeah. Very by the books.
Yeah, absolutely. Like what is civilization if not that which holds like the chaos at bay? Right. That's kind of her. That's kind of her vibe. Okay, so I'm Joan. When you appear, this pyramid thing no longer. It's not there anymore. Right. Like it was like you were walking up it and then it disappeared. Now you were all floating in this void. As the death rattle kind of like sounds, I can't say the Zajidan from the alternate reality each time. I don't want to say Naklidan. So
Zajidan's soul? I don't know.
It's got a. I'm just gonna like Abbas. What is the childhood nickname?
I think you can just say Zajidan because there's nothing else here.
Yeah,
Right?
I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, sure.
But,
I was gonna ask Abbas for like a childhood.
But it's a good
nickname.
question. Yeah, but that's a good question. We should hear that answer.
like childhood nickname that Abbas had for Zajan?
Yeah, that wasn't like Bhaiya, right? Like
It was just called
it's like I'm wondering now he calls him Bhaiya because he's very like respectful and stuff. But like when you're 7 and he's 9, it might have been different. I don't know if the age gap is just 2 years, but you know what I mean, right? Like,
yeah, that's a good question. Let me. So my the only thing that's like the only thought that's in my head is that my dad calls his older brother Bonda. It doesn't mean
it's
anything,
just
but I can't think of
yeah,
it.
no, I think that's perfect though, right? It's that kind of thing where it's just
Don't use that.
no, I don't mean that. I mean it's like it's gonna be something like completely meaningless except that it came up in that way, right? Like we can just like pick 2 syllables and go with it. Just call him Zed. I'm gonna do it.
Sure.
Zed's dead, baby.
One of my cousins calls her older brother Bhoot, which means ghost. She's been doing this since he was a child, and no one knows why.
That's
He's currently
Terrifying.
23.
that's yeah.
Zed.
Yes. In fact, actually, one sec, because it shouldn't be Z. It should be whatever the Urdu letter is. I don't have any Urdu anymore, so Zal. It'll be Zal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think so. Zal will see this happen and come fully prepared. By the way, he had a day to prepare, and he's a hard man in it. He from his pack he withdraws a lightning hook, and this is a lightning hook that is blasphemy, I think, because he murdered wherever he was from. He murdered the shrine builder. I think this is a lightning hook made from whoever that shrine builder was, like the bones of that person. And it is intricately carved. And in his hands, it looks less like a hook and more like a sword. He brandishes it and murmurs like a couple of words underneath his breath. He knows he's here to do a job. He's gonna do the job, right? So that is like his key thing here. No fear, no hesitation. You gotta kill the thing. I'm gonna kill the thing, right? And he's just gonna go for it, right? So like periodically, I will also roll for him as if he were like making progress on this clock. but that's mostly because I think it is good to have some randomness there. But for him, he's always going to be in a desperate position, and he's a badass and doesn't give a shit about it.
Mm-hmm.
What are the rest of you doing?
Okay. Yes. So Freya is also here.
Yeah.
Yes, but hasn't interacted yet. So I think the reason she hasn't interacted yet is that she kind of like fades in and out of reality. Here, like it's like an echo of her that is here, but I think like largely because Zal is probably here because he wants it more. It's like much more personal for him. Whereas for Freya, she's like connected to the temple, but it's not like, it's nowhere near the Chakrabortis, right? So she's only here periodically. So she kind of like fades in and out, but now she's kind of like, well, this is also an advantage, I guess. So now I think she kind of like emerges, and then the crown sort of, she emerges, and then like, so it's kind of like sometimes she's here, sometimes she's not. And when she's here, sometimes the crown is on her head and she looks regal, and sometimes she doesn't. She looks like in different variations. Right now she's got the crown on, and I think she's going to take the crown and she's going to hold it, and she's going to crush it in her hands and throw like and kind of like throw the shards at the snake.
Okay.
And the intention here is that I'm going to use a variation on Tempest to throw ice bolts at her at the snake.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Are you?
Feel that's an attune?
Yeah, no, it is an attune. I think you're right. So I was wondering whether there is a crown-related, like, interesting fictional texture here, but in fact, we already know that Freya's given that up, so it's not even necessarily like interesting to see that. But yeah, okay. So desperate. Had 0 effect before your push. And the reason for this is that this is the avatar of a god that's made of fire, and you are throwing ice at it.
I'm not just throwing ice at it. I'm throwing ice that used to be a crown. And we have established that king does not listen to peasants, but I am not a peasant.
Yes, correct. Desperate limited before the push.
Okay. And yes, so I would push for standard. And is there anyone assisting me in this?
Yeah, sure. I like assisting. So your idea is to do like a shotgun attack at the snake, right?
Yeah.
You know what? It's a snake. It moves around. We're still in this abstract void where we're fighting. I aim to switch that up. But for the moment, I think Vickers will just pin its tail with her huge spear
Nice.
to hold it in place.
Yes.
So I'm assisting you by just holding it down with a spear.
Excellent. All right, let's do it. 6.
Ooh. 1, 5, 4, 6.
Yeah.
Standard effect, that's 2 ticks. You throw your crown, which is winter. Oh my god, we're back in Game of Thrones. You throw your crown, which is frost, at the snake, and it's the fire that it is made of. Just for a moment, this impossible, huge, scaly body that is still like flaming shimmers. I think what we see is that the ice and the fire collide, and we see like it turn into steam, right? And as this happens, I think the snake hisses. I think the snake says, "Another supplicant, other royal. You just as meaningless in this form as you are in every other. I will crush you." But, I mean, it says that. It has not crushed you yet.
And I think Freya and this is what Freya says before she vanishes again. I am not meaningless. Ask for my name in Bundervest. Ask for my family here. Ask them my name. Ask them what I mean. What do you mean? Who knows you?
Very good. I do want to say here that, like, can work on this clock through philosophy. I'm not gonna take that away from you. It may even be more effective than attacking it, right? But yeah, absolutely. Very good.
I know, I'm going to work on this book through philosophy.
I am glad.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Do you want to go next?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I think Joan, perhaps uncharacteristically, is like not rushing in to ambush with violence. She is almost like kind of having her hands behind her back, as if she is philosophizing or like having a symposium discussion. Furrows her brow. The wheel turns because of you, you see. I have read that the wheel turns because it has always been turning. But stories of your emergence are in human memory. I have heard them from a mage, from ancient works. And in ancient works it is also written that anything that has a beginning must also have an ending.
Yes! I just love it.
And I think she's gonna attune and try to shake the ghost field to like make that more of a reality. And of course, she is saying this with the voice of the Kingfisher.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
And I think this is by the way a great moment to, if you want. I don't know if it's the moment of your utmost need, right? You can call upon him now, if you want, or you can save it later.
Man, I feel like I've mentioned him, so it would be a good moment. And also, we're fighting a god. The avatar of God. There's not going to be a moment of more need.
So I think
that automatically changes the position from desperate to ultra desperate.
Sure.
With more effect, of course.
Wait, what? What was the beginning of that sentence?
I said changing it up to evoke Avradam Kuset probably changes the position. You probably trade position for effect from desperate to whatever effect to ultra desperate and whatever effect.
I mean, the hack that I really like for this is that you go from desperate to deadly. So yeah, I mean, let's do it. We can play a game however we like. Let's say this is really going to be one of the rare times I suspect in the session where you will start at even standard effect. But we're fictionally positioned perfectly for this. We're at standard. I think calling upon the major stars is a classic devil's bargain here. So it's going to give you a +1 die for sure. But it will also give you some fictional texture. And yeah, I mean, if you want to.
Oh, the voice of the Kingfisher is a push because that's a voice of authority. So that I will push for effect.
Yes, then you are a great effect. Okay, sorry. Let me do the maths again. Just give me a second. Let's say before you call upon him, you were at desperate limited. Called upon this guy, you went to deadly standard. Then you pushed. You're at deadly great. Yeah. Okay, that's how it goes.
And you are, remind me, you're trying to shape the world around the serpent now.
No, well, the serpent is in my philosophizing. The serpent is part of the world. That's the very crux of this thing here, is that it's not a divinity itself that is above the world. It is
exactly. Yeah, it is part of the world.
Trying to attune to the ghost field because that's where we're in, the world we're in, trying to shape it to be true.
I do have a procedural question though. So we said deadly standard for evoking Avradan Kuset, and then before the push, it's after the push, it's deadly great, right?
Yes.
But you're not just pushing; you're also invoking an ability. So you should be getting the abilities bonuses, and then you can decide what you want to do with your push, right?
You're not wrong.
Yes.
So shouldn't you be a desperate grade or something by default before you decide what to do with the push?
You can get extreme effect, or you can get +1.
Well, no, you can't.
Yeah, right. Because you can. You already have a nose burger.
No. That's what the push does, though. And the additional thing that happens is that either if you used it on a human, either you become the center of attention, or your word is accepted as fact, or at least your interlocutors cannot publicly talk
So
against.
voice of authority is
Speak
what is
against.
permitting you in this place to even convince the god that you are correct, right? Because you are in a place where the divinity inside you is demanding that it be accepted as fact.
Okay.
Yes.
So the ability
I
allows
think
for
so.
it to happen in the first place. Okay, cool.
Yes,
We
good.
have established.
I mean, this is important. I don't disagree. I'm glad we had this conversation. So you are now at Deadly Great.
Deadly Great. One bonus die from the
Mhm.
from the Devil's Bargain, because what does the fact that he arrives that Major Stars arrive also, well, that will probably also have some sort of consequence for us.
First of all, Major Stars can never leave his vigil. He knows this. And so he has concocted a way to assist you. Now, the Chakrabarti is all about like time and reality and so on. And that's why an alternate Zajidan can be. That's not what the Major Stars is about, right? So I think what he has done is that he has woven an effigy of himself of ratty, matted blonde hair. Right? And this effigy appears, and he knows very well that obviously hair is flammable, right? So he's treated the effigy also to like stand up to this kind of divinity.
Covered in wax.
I want to point out the thing also, Joan. I don't think I can assist you here. I can't think of a way to do it. But we have a special ability by which our god assists us with any one action. And I feel like now would be a good moment to invoke that, because you are telling the truth. Everything that lives must die.
So it's not the snake that is assisting, it's the
the
undying fire of
principle.
revolution.
Yeah.
Principle.
Mhm.
The Chakraborty is like, you are my real child, not the snake.
Yeah. I mean, I think it makes sense to just take the divine assistance when you're invoking a principle, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, I will do that. We have this point, deadly attune, extreme effects, 5 dice.
Oh man, let's see it.
It can only succeed.
Triple sixes.
Oh my!
It can only succeed.
Wait.
Incredible.
Are you fucking kidding?
Okay, campaign's over. We won. Bye.
Okay.
All right.
I also mean like that the 6s are consecutive, so it's a 666.
I want you in this moment. Think about this card you have with you, this Riot Crow, that is indelibly bound to you. I want you to tell me, kind of out of character, even, right? Like again, going back to the conversation we had that was about politics. What that kind of like consequence of like adopting violence has what that consequence has motivated in this space, because I think it is super interesting that you've done all of this and you're attuning and you are changing the world through your force of will, but I like the idea that it is not just, it's both your virtues and your flaws, right? And I think we've seen the virtues. You asked for help. I want to know what your flaws also do here.
Well, I think the flaw is that violence doesn't have to look like drawing a sword and stabbing somebody with it. But it can also look like using the voice of a god to make it impossible for anyone to think other than what you just said. I think that's the violent thing.
No, you're right. On the 666, right? I think we see how hear you speak, and he stops immediately what he was doing, utters something else, pulls out like a spirit mask, right? And is manipulating it because now there are 2 divinities in front of him. Still a badass. I think he's gonna be a badass forever, by the way. Like the more cool shit happens in front of him, the cooler he's gonna get, right? He'll never look back at an explosion. He's gonna take notice, right? He's gonna stop and be like, okay, this is what's happening.
Who is this? Who is doing this?
This is the alternate Zajidan, Zal.
Yeah.
I want to know how. I guess Freya can conveniently not be here. It was very useful for her to disappear in this moment. It is literally the Kingfisher being used. But she can be here if she wants to. And I also want to know what you are doing, Vickers. Like on extreme
Oh.
effect, that's 5 ticks to be clear. So like,
Yep.
wow.
And then there's some crit bonus as well, right? So
Yes.
I think having
No, this
pinned
was great effect with a crit bonus. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
yeah, it's 5 ticks and something else. So, but I think what I'm doing is fairly obvious. I'm running up the snake. I pull out the spear from the tail, and I'm running up it towards the head, right?
Mhm.
And I will say, I know you, and I know your wheels, and I know your cycles and your eternity. Man hands down misery to man, it deepens like a coastal shelf. No more! I'm breaking the cycle!
I'm dead.
And I will jam the spear into its head.
Excellent.
And in this universe, the coastal shelf deepens forever.
It deepens into the sky
Yes.
is the problem.
And yeah, I'm going to wreck it by spearing it in the head, and I am breaking the cycle.
Excellent.
This is my goal.
So I think I'm gonna rejig a little bit then what Zal is doing, because if you're doing this,
Uh-huh.
he's gonna act like a
To be
cohort
clear,
leader.
I don't expect this to kill it necessarily, but it
Yeah.
gives me a handhold in its head.
Oh, sure, yeah. The
Uh-huh.
action like works on the clock, right? I think
mhm.
in this case, Zal is going to be like a cohort, right? Like you, like, because I thought about it and I was like, I already have rules for this. I don't have to like treat him like a different kind of NPC. So he's just an expert god killer, is what we're going to call him, and he's going to have 3 dice. So when you command him or you work alongside him, he's going to have 3 dice at god killing. That's going to be the one action he rolls.
Yep.
And so
Okay, so I have
he's used-
1 die from him.
oh no, like if you have 1 die from him if he's assisting you. You have 3 dice from him if you do a group action.
Yeah, I think I'm doing a group action. Yeah, depends on what he does. But if he is joining me in assaulting the snake,
I also want to set you guys up.
Uh-huh.
That's Freya. So Freya, I think, doesn't reappear, doesn't physically manifest again, but what does manifest is a torrential storm that douses the snake and also provides wind to boost you guys up.
Right.
Excellent.
Okay. So
This is Attune again,
yeah,
right?
it's gonna. Yeah, it is.
You're setting us up with a 2?
Yeah.
Let me think. I mean, sorry, still in a desperate position, etc. But you can do this, and in fact, you're not even like working on the clock. You're just setting them up, right? So then it's standard effect.
Yep.
I think it'll have to be like limited going up to standard because you are still in its like literal influence. Right?
Oh, wait. I would have limited effect without Freya setting me up, is what you're saying.
You would have limited effect without Freya setting you up.
Yep.
And I think Freya is at limited before she uses her push, because the snake is still like a mighty enemy, right? Like you want to do something, you're gonna have to push against it. So Freya's at desperate limited, but ideally you should push to get to standard effect. And like the problem with the setup is like at limited, even if you succeed, what happens, etc. We'll see how that goes. So if you want the die, you can still take the die.
Yep.
I don't want to prescribe that to you.
Okay, well, let's do the Freya setup first. So
I am pushing for effect, and because I'm pushing to do the thing, so I think I'll push for effect, and also I have 2 push abilities actually. I also have like a star, so there's suddenly a blinding light that accompanies all of this, which it doesn't do anything except everyone else looks really cool.
yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll never say that I don't make my friends look cool.
I never say that. I only
okay.
say you are too eager to get your own character skill. Please don't.
There you go.
It's a 6.
Whew. I mean,
We are
I
set
do
up.
want to say it is like there is a world here where you roll worse and you roll dead. But it turns out we are not in that world.
Yep.
Just
Yeah, we're literally in a different timeline.
Yep. Great. Excellent. Amazing.
Okay. I have 2 things I want to do, and we'll see if they work out. Just flagging that. They are kind of in a row. But the first step is absolutely going to be to stick the spear in the snake's head.
I think
So,
so. I was just wondering what Zal is doing, and I think he is. He sees you. He intuits that you want to like pierce the snake's head. I think what he is doing is rushing with you. Like if you're approaching from like one end, he's rushing from the other, so that the snake ideally cannot look at both of you at the same time. Now the snake is divine; it doesn't have to like use its eyes, right? But he's hoping to like coordinate perfectly with you in order to make this happen.
Yep. Okay, cool. So I'm at Desperate Standard, and I'm pushing myself for a die and the Tiger's Fury, which is knocking my enemy back, down, or over, and that's going to tie into my next action.
Okay.
So I don't think it improves my effect right now, but I'm just flagging that I'm moving the snake by doing this.
Sure, yeah.
And that's like jamming the spear into its head and steering it.
I mean, it's really
So I'm
important
rolling.
that you have the destroyer here, because that gives you the fictional permission to do this even to a snake, right?
Yep.
Yeah, go on.
All right. So, Desperate Standard, 1 bonus die, and I think unless someone can assist me, I will just roll, and then I will roll 3 dice for Zal.
Yeah.
Yep. Here we go. I have rolled.
531, still a 5.
And it's a
4-3.
4 from Zal, so I take no extra stress, but I do take the Desperate Consequence. However, I succeed.
So you tell me
And-
how you succeed, then we will talk about consequences.
Yeah,
I think I
exactly.
may
Well,
protect you. Just like
you can. Let me describe what I'm doing first, because I jam the spear in. This is, I guess, my standard effect, and I knock the snake down, which is specifically a thing I can do. And the reason I'm knocking it down is that we will now see Uduasha form around us, but this is a strange time dimension. It's not the Uduasha of present day. It at the bottom of it, there should be a well, but instead there is a large hole and the shattered remnants of a gate. For you see, 800 years ago, the gates of death were shattered by the Emperor Immortal. And I am steering the snake towards the gate of death.
Excellent.
Very good. And therefore, the desperate consequence presents itself so naturally, right? Because as you do this, the snake realizes, grabs you by the shoulder, or like goes to grab you by the shoulder, and Zal calmly, with no problem whatsoever, interposes between you and the snake, right? And as he does so, he says, take care, daughter-in-law. The would-be son needs the help. And just as he says help, the snake's fangs goes down on him, and it throws him into that hole, and you see him passing through those gates, like falling down, and he's going to pass through. And I think that the desperate consequence here is, A, I'm going to take this clock, right? But B, you are going to lose this cohort, and also more importantly, this very nice man who's a badass. You can resist.
On the other hand, he came here with the explicit purpose of dying to save us. So, you know.
I think he has no problems with this. I want to make, like, I think it's really important, like, to stress that, like, he made his peace with this. He knew there was some slim chance. This is like, you know how the perfect Mass Effect 2 suicide mission, everybody comes out? I mean, that's the perfect mission. This is not that, right?
Yeah. No, and he came here to sacrifice his life to save his son. It is all as it should be.
Yep.
But
resist the other bit.
Should resist, because like
the clock being ticked,
prior to resisting a desperate consequence is 3 texts, right? So.
How are you resisting this, Freya?
Yeah. So I see Zajidan kind of Team Rocket's blasting off again into the void. And Freya kind of like briefly, shimmeringly reappears on like a ledge overlooking the gates of death. And I think I'm going to resist this with some sort of like deep spiritual resolve. So the consequence here is that you're putting 3 ticks on the 6-tick reset clock that we established. That if it fills up, one of us is going to get replaced by some version of ourselves that's amenable to the snake's influence. And that could be any of us. But I think Freya feels it the strongest because she isn't really like, she's got so many different versions of herself that can so easily be, well, susceptible to godly power, of course, but also so easily susceptible to the allure of royalty. You know, there are versions of herself where she did lead a massive revolution to regain Scotland. Thousands, millions of people died. There are versions of her like that. And I think what she does is that she closes her eyes and starts to, and understands that to that there must be some way to destroy every version of herself that is not the young girl who just wants to escape, the one who's in the real world. Does that make sense for Resist? Like a sort of like fictional sort of like resolve? And I think like what she's going to do is she's going to, this version of herself wants to then pass into the gates of death.
Oh man. Okay. Sure.
And I want to make that clear that Freya in the real world will still survive, but like it's going to be like a shrine builder in the cycle sort of thing for her.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that like it makes sense. Let's say that like partially what this does is I think that the resistance is also emblematic of this thing of like Freya wanting to like move on, but knowing that she's abandoning something that like meant a lot to her. That is the thing that you're sacrificing. I don't want it to like. I'm not a huge fan necessarily of people just. I know Zal just did this, but the kind of like self-destruction in order to protect other people is like really like a very common trope. I think that like
it's self-destruction to protect herself. If you understand what I mean.
I think I like that a
like
lot
there's
better.
always going to be versions of Freya, that would be a pawn in this game, and she no longer wants that. And so this version of Freya is going to put an end to all of that.
Yeah, and I think like just thinking about this, one of the reasons that Al doesn't sit as badly with me is A, I mean he's not a PC. B, I think he didn't want to die, right? Like he wanted to live. He accepted, however, that was like very unlikely, right? Whereas in this case, this version of Freya is making an active choice, but she's making that choice detriment of herself in a way, right? Yeah, absolutely. Seems like resolve. Yeah, seems like resolve.
I think I'm going to interpret this as level 3 harm to myself, by which I mean I'm going to be incapacitated from doing anything else except like fulfilling the thing that I think I need to do.
X.
There should actually be one more dice there because I think this is spiritual harm, and we have an ability for that.
Okay. I mean, if it had been another 6, you would have like healed the stress, which would have been incredible, right?
Yeah.
So I think like to be honest, my instinct here is to go very hard and say that like we're now at 2 ticks instead of 3. You can tell me if you feel that that's unfair because you are taking level 3 harm. But it feels to me
I think it should be 1 tick, actually.
My feeling here is that like it can't be 0. Because whether it should be 2 or 1, and I wanted to advocate for 2, and then like if you think it should be 1, that's fine for me. I think we should cut back now, but I think we have the scene. And Joan, I don't think you are seeing this in the same way as everybody else is, right? Because like you are not hurtling in that way.
I have a very dumb idea for how to set this up. Actually, for how to set Joan up, and this is, let me remind you, a screwy ghost field metaphorical dimension, right? So I'm throwing the snake down towards the gates of death, and it will see this like Udwasha and this great hole at the center of Udwasha, and then we zoom out and we see that it is actually Joan's mouth.
So
I have a mouth, and you will scream.
Yes.
I don't really know.
Yeah.
Because I think Joan's mouth is something else than like.
It's not
I was
dead.
going to say that Joan explicitly does not want to eat this nature.
Yeah.
Because all the gods that she has eaten and all the divine things that she has eaten or taken into herself still remain in the world.
That's true.
But we are killing the snake, not keeping it in the world.
It makes sense. We are breaking the cycle. Yes. We are not leaving a trace of it. Yes. Okay. It was just a mental image I had in my head that I had to share.
I think it's a very good image. And I do want to like snap back here because we've established that Zajidans died on this end, and that's going to have an impact on that end, which is why I want to go back there. But I think it's useful to keep like something like that image in the mind, because when we come back, it would be very cool to have something like that happen. Aadiyat, is that your cat?
That is my cat, yes.
Say assalamu alaikum to Adi.
Assalamu alaikum, Adi. He's walked. I said that and he just walked away. So.
Kids these days. He's going through his teenage phase.
Yeah.
Indeed, as he has been since day one.
It's a cat. What makes you expect he wants peace?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very typical. He came in, he meowed at me, and then he walked away. So I guess he got what he wanted.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. back to it, I guess.
Indeed. We are on. We cut back to this room. The inspector is on the ground. Sophie has tried to tackle her. Not Sophie. Maud has tried to tackle her with some success. Abbas, you are on the ground with her.
Yeah.
Perhaps most importantly, as you are seeing your father, you are wondering what is going wrong. Padmapriya is looking at him and like with the same kind of urgency as you, right? Just being like, come back to us, come back to us. And this is the opposite side of that death rattle, which is that you see him breathe out that final like time. He doesn't open his eyes. You don't get like a way to like necessarily talk to each other, but because you are connected to him soul to soul and spirit to spirit, I think that like because Zal knew explicitly that like it was very likely that he was going to die, and if he intended to die, he intended to do it in a way that saved your life. There's a moment here for you to communicate with him. There is a moment here for you to. You are not communicating with Zal. You don't know him. He says he again, like he's done a lot of work here. You're going to communicate with that spirit of your father who made that choice to save your life.
Okay. I have a moment for when this happens. Like I like this, but I think a few other things happen first.
Oh, no, that's totally fine. The only thing I was going to say here is right now the way that communication is going to be is it's going to be very short. It's going to be like a single feeling, but I think you can and you should roll to make it more than that. I think you should like. There is a space here to make it more than that, but like the way that I'm thinking of this logic is he's spread really thin. There's so much stuff he was doing. This was very important. So were other things. So you should do that. But yeah.
Okay. But he is dead now, right?
I mean, Zal died. I don't think that like I think Vic has explicitly asked him to ensure that this would happen. I think he prepared that in that way. I think that like that is.
Yeah. As a reminder, he dies and he is supposed to take the shrine builder with him, which I don't think has happened yet. So I think we're still kind of in the gates of death moment.
Okay. If you guys don't mind me having the spotlight for a bit, let me quickly say what I do, and then
that's totally fine.
Tree, you can respond, and then you can be in that space for a bit. Okay. I think first stage that happens with Miraz is that it's Miraz. He doesn't get it. So he sees the dying breath and he looks at Padmapriya excitedly and says, "Do you see? He's breathing. He's moving. Quick!" And then he kind of like and then like he feels, he feels the thing that you described, and I think he knows what it is. Everyone does. I think it's like soul. Like every human being understands deeply. Like if this were happened to them, they would understand it. And he gets it, but I think he's just going to pretend he doesn't get it, as he kind of like is trying to like he's not like violently shaking Zajidan this time. He's kind of like just talking to him, trying to let him up. And then we hear the unmistakable sounds of bees approaching from every direction as they start like creeping into the laboratory. And I think that's when he gets it. And his immediate reaction is to kind of, he doesn't say anything. He just kind of like holds his father tight and tries to prevent any bees from getting onto his father. And I think in that moment where he's like tightly holding his father, I think then we can make the roll for like a deeper connection, transmuted through the physical touch.
Absolutely.
I also think that trying to prevent the bees from getting at a body.
It's a desperate level action. Yeah.
I think it's just to resist because like there's no success here, right? Or is there?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's say that like you're gonna take level 2 harm.
Okay.
Unless you resist, so you should resist.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So that's prowess. Let me just.
Should be prowess, yeah.
And this would be physical harm, right?
Yeah, physical harm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's.
Oof.
I do trauma out, but that's fine.
2-1.
Yeah.
Okay, so in fact, if you trauma out, that's like, incredibly sad, heartbreaking. The chef's kiss on like the narrative arc.
Yes, of course.
And C, I think then like part of the being disconnected from the scene is the fact that you've exited. You are in literally a different space. Plus, Miraz is not the only one who has heard the bees.
Yeah.
I think Padmamukhi shouts like it's not a cry of grief and rage, and nobody's like, I mean, you stopped her from being shot, which meant that she could actually do the thing that she wants to do. And what she's going to do in this moment is murder this inspector if she's permitted, right? And the inspector is incredibly competent. She's not fight off 3 people while on the ground competent, right? Even John Wick gets hurt in those films, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so murdering an inspector, and Zajuddin is dead. Murdering an inspector in a very different level of emotional space is a terrible idea. Do not do that.
Because I'm like, while Zoheb was narrating that, like I'm thinking that so Abbas is not watching, but like he's there while his brother is dying, and he's just being dispassionately being beaten up by
a cop.
Yeah, by a cop. So, so if I'm coming back, if coming back from a trauma, I think like Abbas is like enraged. He's gonna try to land blows too. Like logic has gone out the window. It's like my brother's dead because of you.
I mean, it could be, right? And I think in that position, I personally would just connect that. I wouldn't even be like. I would be like, if you'd waited 5 minutes, right, you could have prevented that. You didn't wait 5 minutes.
In the larger systemic scheme of things.
Yes.
So, the larger systemic scheme of things, 5 minutes is always useful. That's what I believe.
Indeed.
So
yes, I'm just going at this inspector with everything I've got. So
excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Desperate situation. Yeah, desperate situation. Yeah. You are now actually at great effect because you can do this. A, I think great effect is necessary to murder an inspector, but you have that. And B, even if somehow you fail, Mamukhi is going to do it for you, right? Like, in fact, this is probably like a group action with your cohort, but this is not. Second, let me just look at your tier 1. I think she will actually roll like 0 dice because she's an elite adept. She's not an elite bug. No, then 1 die. She doesn't get. How does this work? Is it that like if you try and roll something that's outside your expertise, you just roll 0 dice? I think it may be that.
I'm also going to be rolling 0 dice, so this is not going to go very well.
Oh, I think the thing is,
God can always help you for free. Remember,
the God can always help you for free. And let's be real, on a 3, it's not that she's not going to die. It's that on a 3, it's that she's going to die in a really unhelpful way, and then you're also going to die. Right? But the role here is not to see whether you can kill her, to be honest, because
I see.
There's too much going against her. Right? It's about seeing how messy it is, whether she manages to do something. Right? Like she doesn't just walk into Odo without being prepared. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, luckily, I've just got a fresh stress bar over here. So much stress gets done.
Yes, indeed. To be honest, given that you have just traumaed out, I think it's very. This has to be the thing that you do. Okay.
So we're doing it as a group action then?
Yeah. You will roll 0 dice for her and 0 dice for yourself. You are leading. Seems like either a wreck or a skirmish to me. So you both have 0 in.
Looks like skirmish to me.
Yeah.
Skirmish. I'll push myself for a die and then come up to a grand total of 1 for myself.
2.
Ooh.
You can roll the 2 dice for her. She could still roll 2 successes.
Okay, I see.
2 and a 3. What's gonna happen here is you go at her. Are you just beating her with your fists?
Just swearing, beating with fists, knees, anything. Just you fuck, you come in, you kill my brother.
100%.
So on and so forth.
Yeah. And to be honest, Padmamukhi is in much the same state, and she is transforming. And oh man, can I resist this? Oh, but you should. You can see, I think this is where, to some extent, she's losing control of herself. And the snake, which is not a single entity in that it can... So in the Bartimaeus novels, Genie Bartimaeus says, oh, people can only... Regular humans can only have one conscious thing at a time. You can read one line of text. I'm amazing. I can read 5 at once, all like under each other, right? Whatever that means. And what I mean here is that the snake, even as it is going through that battle and not doing super well, they're rolling really well against it, feels in this place. Badmamukhi loses herself to her grief and gives her even more power. And Badmamukhi, who until now, like, the transformation into snake has been so... She's been able to like control it to a large extent, right? She's been doing it very carefully, very methodically. That's no longer the case. And now she grows fangs, and you see her sink her snake fangs into this woman's throat. And this is not something that she or her sister will ever really be able to recover from. So, a good reason to resist this. Another good reason to resist this is that I'm going to tick the reset clock. So I think...
Isn't the best reason to resist this that killing an inspector is a bad thing?
It is so funny. I actually, I suspect you'll survive somehow. But like for me, Badmamukhi becoming some kind of cannibal woman, that hurts so much more. And I guess you killed a cop, right? But, I mean, yeah, there are all these reasons.
I mean, we are trying to, if not kill, like beat the shit out of this cop for, because we were blaming her. So I'm not sure why I would resist Badmamukhi doing that.
I think, like the inspector being killed, I don't think I can resist that, but I think I can resist the snake reaching out. I'm not in the scene, but I am with the snake. So I can probably, like, if you want, I can do... I don't know if there are several consequences here, but I think I can resist the part where the snake gets to do shit.
Me, the 3 ticks for the desperate consequence are her transforming fully. You mitigate that, you mitigate the transformation, and so on. And that's consequence 1. Consequence 2 is the inspector dies in a messy fashion. And to some extent, like, because Abbas's solution, like, his intent was to murder her. Like, resisting that seems a bit... But, if you want to do that, I think, like, that's up to, like, how Aadiyat feels about the fiction. I think that's not possible.
Abbas, are you okay with me resisting the snake getting to do shit? I think that's my question.
Well, like, Abbas isn't like necessarily wanting to kill the inspector. It's just like,
Yeah.
Like, it's the most, like, it's the closest thing for him to direct his grief and anger towards, right? So,
then you can, yeah.
Like,
so let's say that consequence 1 to resist is the absolute fuck murder of this inspector, and consequence 2 is the ticking of this clock via and fictionally, the transformation of Badmamukhi into like some kind of snake being.
Okay. So, yeah, are you resisting killing the inspector then?
No, I'm not really resisting killing the inspector, but I guess I wouldn't want Badmamukhi to be like a cannibal snake woman. So I guess that's what we're resisting.
Okay, well, I can do the resist, I think. And I have the bodyguard ability, so I have +1 when I'm protecting someone else, which I think that I am.
I want to know, what does this look like on that end? I mean, I have to know, right? Like...
Yeah, no, I think I sense the snake reaching out as I'm riding it towards the gates of death, right? And I think I will just tell it, like, in my commanding voice, like, oh no, you've meddled quite enough in the lives of others. That's what got you into this mess to begin with. And I am just going to tell it to stop.
Yeah, excellent. I love this. Seems like resolve. No, well, insight says understanding. Maybe you are understanding here.
Yeah, fair. I'll roll with insight then. I have a bonus dice though.
You've got 3 dice in both.
Yeah,
so
I have an extra bonus
whatever.
dice in resolve, but it's fair. I take a stress.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, one stress. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm going to, while I'm steering the snake towards death, sternly tell it to stop being such a meddlesome and annoying individual.
Excellent. So I think in that case, I think the same way as we spoke about it earlier. Well, not taking level 3 harm. I think it's like down from 3 ticks to 2 ticks. I think that the way that like that fiction worked was for Freya was very costly. This is not quite so costly, right?
It makes sense to tick the clock twice. Like Padmamukhi does not become a monster, and the clock still ticks but slower. Yeah.
I would like to resist that one, please.
Okay.
Because like what appears is like the snake is getting closer to like getting us on, like using its power to get us on its side, right? And I think what we see is that Joan is going to not eat but bite the tip of its tail.
Okay.
In a very symbolic way, because you know you have that like the images everywhere of snakes eating each other and stuff.
Mhm.
And I think what the symbolic threat here is that if the snake starts consuming us and starts like by turning us into its allies, then it will itself also be consumed.
Absolutely. Only by changing itself can it be permitted to change you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, we're very deep in a metaphorical dimension anyway.
100%. Yeah. I mean, like this is it's phenomenology all the way down.
Mhm. This is an insight test.
Makes sense.
We have
And a
5.
5. So 1 fewer tick again. So we're down to 1 tick. So you're at 2 now.
2 ticks, yeah.
Unless someone does something, and I don't know if anybody's in the position to. Constance Constable is going to bid farewell, and there's a ton of bees right here who are also going to head for her. She is also dead. At least in this case, I don't think she's. Okay, I think in this case, what's happened is not that like. So Padmamukhi has been prevented. In fact, I think she holds herself. She's resisting. She's feeling like, again, the solidarity, right? But I think what does happen, Abbas, is that you like punch her and her head like knocks back. The back of her head hits something sharp, right? And it's an accident. It's not even, you didn't even mean to do it. Right? Sometimes that's what happens. Sometimes these things just like, you fall and it's a very bad set of circumstances, right? She's
Okay.
fallen.
Question.
Yes.
So I traumaed out, but
Mhm.
can I act in the scene? I'm just establishing.
I think that the way that I'm imagining the traumaing out is that, like, right now, it's your character, but we're no longer in the physical space in this way to be able to, like, rationally do something, because you have just seen this happen. I think the reason that the role to try and, like, make that moment with Zajidan work is that explicitly puts you even more outside the space that you're in. But you haven't even really exited yet. Right? Like,
Okay.
It would be just, oh, can I do something now? There is some way you feel that Freya can resist somehow, because, to be clear, Constable is Freya's explicit rival. Right? It's not that you don't have a fictional permission there, or the fictional like standing to do that. At least it seems to me like Miraz is not in the position.
Dumb idea then, regarding Freya. If Constable dies in the temple, does she show up where Freya is? There's the gates of death right there. Do they cross through it?
You can make that happen. So the reason I say this is that the way that I understand
I'm
this
just
is because-
asking if someone dies in the temple and we are here in this version of Udasha where we're seeing the gates of death, do we see them normally? If it could have been anyone else, right?
No, great question. So the reason I'm saying this is, so Vickers, who explicitly said weird, different Udawasha. Right? Now, succeeded at that, which meant that did happen. Now, is that weird, different Udawasha close enough to this reality that it can happen? A and B, people are generally dying. Does this now mean, and this can be true, that there are loads of ghosts appearing here, all heading towards the gates of death, and she's going to be one of them? Or is it she's only...
Yes, possible.
Right? Like, even that is fine, I think. I think that is the way that this works.
Yeah.
actually, like, maybe because Constable dies and she's like physically close, suddenly you go from being in a deserted Uduasha, Gates of Death, to Uduasha populated by all of the ghosts who are dying, all heading in, right? And she's going to be one of them.
So I think, so the fictional positioning here is in the Udu is a spirit well, where in our version of Uduasha, the main Uduasha A, we could say, if Constable dies, her body gets eaten by bees and her soul gets sucked into the Udu. In Uduasha B, the other version, where the snake is, the Udu has been replaced by the Gates of Death. And in that version, Constable's ghost would go through the Gates of Death. It's the same thing is happening, but with a different fictional object as the locus.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Constable is the only one we see here, because I think the reason we see her is that she died in the temple. We don't see Zajidan because we already saw Zajidan die
Sure.
in Uduasha B.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think if Constable dies in Uduasha A, we see her walking, we see her flying, we see her soul flying into the Gates of Death in Uduasha B, and no one else.
Makes sense to me. Makes sense.
Or now.
No. Yeah.
If someone else dies, we'll also see them.
Yes, correct. Isn't that handy?
Yeah. But anyway, so if she does, like, is she walking through calmly? Is she getting sucked in? Like, how does it work, do you think? What do I see?
I think what you see
Freya.
is, and there's a couple of images that are very tempting, right? First one is in Pirates of the Caribbean 3. There is a scene where all of the dead are on these like little rowboats. They're sailing off, right? And they're very calm. But there's also, in the Disney version of Hercules, a massive writhing soul storm of the dead. And they are both so fun, right? So I haven't done a single paint the scene, I think, yet. Let's do that here, because I think it gives us a little texture, but also it's been very breakneck. It might be nice to like take a step back.
Cool.
So let's start with Aadiyat.
That's
What is the emotion on Constable's face when Freya sees her?
so. I mean, for someone like this, it only has to like it can only be like if she's walking towards like Gates of Death, like it has to be like the kind of stoic kind of military funeral kind of expression, right?
She did her duty. She died doing her duty.
Yeah. Right. No regrets.
Yeah. Emma, I think that the dead, when they fall into the Gates of Death, are transformed into the version of themselves that they most see themselves as. What difference do you think we see in Constable from the way that we've seen her alive in Uduasha?
The version of themselves that they most see themselves as. So we know that Constable, that duty is one of the most important things to have. And that I think we see Constable not in the clothes that she was wearing and not in the style that she appeared, but like in the appearance and the uniform that was common 2 generations ago for people of her station.
The bowler hat.
And it gives her a certain old-fashioned stateliness.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was always a much bigger fan of the pattern 68 bowler hat than the pattern 92 bowler hat.
Indeed. She's got a cape on. Prince.
Like a chicken?
Indeed. Prince. When someone walks through the Gates of Death, someone has to let them in. Who is her key bearer?
Who is her key bearer? Who is like the psychopomp? All right. So remind me, is she from Uduasha? She's not, right? She was assigned.
She was assigned here. She's from the Imperial City. She spent some time in Duskwall. She spent some time across
she
the
came
Empire.
here. Yeah, she came here pretty recent. Okay, so we don't know who this is, but clearly Constable does, right? And this person is a very, very aged and grandfatherly looking man, and he comes kind of out of the gates of death. We're like falling and flying, right? And at first you would expect that a woman like this, it would be a spirit warden, that he would be wearing a mask, but he's not. He's a gondolier. He comes slowly paddling the gondola out.
Yes, absolutely. I will tell you one more fact about him, which is that one of the hands that he uses to paddle it is horribly mangled and burned. Lastly, Klow. I think that in this place, and it is utter chaos, Constable pays no attention to you whatsoever. Freya, I should say, whatsoever. Determined as she is to walk through the gates of death. But I think that there is a sign that she may still be able to be sent back somehow. What is that sign? Because it's the gates of death that are final. Everything before that is not final. What is the sign of that lack of finality?
This is going to sound very pretentious, but I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, you should.
As she's walking towards the gates of death, behind the Ashava mountains of Uduasha, the sun rises.
Are you sure you didn't mean cheesy? Wow, pretentious. The sunrise. Wow, you just spent too much time. You spent too much time in academia, man.
Yeah, it's kind of like, so the idea here is more like, be like implying that there's some sort of like, I don't know, greater destiny or whatever.
No, absolutely, yeah. And I think you see this, and Freya, because you're phasing in and out, you have both an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that you are not caught in that terrible storm that the Snake and Joan and Vickers are all kind of like involved in. But the disadvantage is that you can't just go where you want. You have to like hope that you get to the right place, right? You appear to not have exactly the control that might be ideal. I presume you want to resist the death, but how are you doing this?
I think before the how, let's establish the why, which is, okay, so none of us have any particular sympathy for this person beyond, I guess, like just general human camaraderie. But if an inspector is murdered in the temple by someone who works for the temple, and Abbas was beating her up, like you can get away with killing a blue coat, but there's no way you murder an imperial inspector and get away with it. This is every single one of us is going to jail and perhaps possibly also getting executed.
I mean, it's the season finale, so
Yeah, but like that's maybe not the I'm happy if that happens in the sense that we can't prevent it, but I think Freya understands this, and I think she doesn't want it to happen.
Okay.
So I think she interposes herself between the black-handed gondolier and Constable, and now that she's trying to divorce herself from like the Freya we know, right? So now I think like Constable sees the Imperial Queen like in front of the gates of death, like she's kind of transforming into the coalescence of the version that has to die. So she only sees this Goblin Queen, and I don't know if that makes Constable stop at all. Otherwise, I can do something to make her stop.
It will make her stop, but I also think that you have a flash of insight here because you are royal. Like you have this like understanding of people who would be subservient to you, and I think you see that the gondolier does not want to take her through. And if you step between him and her, he will, and force her to look at you, he will not continue to proceed and drag her. He will wait. And that would also give her pause. I think it's two things. I think first, if you resist, doesn't go through the gates of that, she's here. That doesn't mean that she goes straight back. I think you have to do something else to make her go straight back also. You're mitigating the consequence, right? Like you're making it possible for her to stay alive, not necessarily like completely negating the fact that Abbas like did this and then she, like all of that stuff happened.
Okay. I think Freya will stand in front of the inspector and say, Have you been dismissed from your duty?
My duty is to serve till the end of my life.
And have you reached the end of your life?
From behind you, I think the gondolier says, come on, Constance. Can't be kidding, right? You have to be kidding right now. Go back, you stupid woman. And this may be where you should roll the resistance.
think-
But no, go on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to roll the resistance first and see.
It's,
Lol.
mm.
Double sixes.
Wow. Do you know, civilization is not only coming to an end, but
Mhm.
also Constance Constable is very clear that acronyms must be enunciated correctly. So if you want to say them, you should say them LMAO. Right.
LMAO. I mean, if she's dying, we must respect
we
her
should.
wishes.
But also, she's not dying, so then we don't have to.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to hold her by the shoulder, and I'm going to say, and I'm going to point at the snake. And I say, what do you see there?
I think she looks up, and it's really good that we're in deep metaphorical territory, because like most people can be falling at 1,000,000 miles an hour and yet be infinitely far away from where they're going, right? She looks up and she says, Ollie, fight against the natural order.
Who is fighting against the natural order?
And she looks up and says, used to be a housewife, a railjack.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that the serpent was saying. I think you.
No, yeah. So no, I did say constable, because you were speaking to constable, right? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and constable is
Oh, and now
identifying
the-
the two of them. Yeah.
Now the serpent is responding. Okay. This housewife, what is her name?
Yeah, she's never going to forget, so she will say Victoria Evangeline, Chakraborty, E. Ashcroft.
Heir to the Ashcroft name of Elysia, of noble blood. What is your duty, Inspector?
You should roll here, because yes, absolutely,
Mhm.
this can work, right? You can convince her that the duty is to turn around and help that woman, and hopefully walk back into the world, right? But here's a roll. There is risk. So
That is my gambit.
absolutely, risky standard. And I should again, I think, mention here that like I don't know if Zoheb is feeling this, but what is happening is that so Constable is a PC campaign that Zoheb played earlier, and the Gondolier is my PC from that same campaign, cast in a very different style. And so being able to save Constable here is giving me loads of feelings, even though it doesn't really like make any sense in this campaign because we barely knew her.
Everyone's like, Klow's always killing his characters. His characters kill his other characters. No! I'm going to save
She
her.
deserves better.
I can
She
fix her.
deserves better. And full hand scar. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to push.
Sorry for killing your character.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I don't care about that. I care about the fact that
Yeah,
you're all
it's very
going to go to
important that you not all get executed.
I am not emotionally attached to the lives of any of my characters, unfortunately.
God princes.
Okay. Risky. Yeah. Yes. Risky standard. I'm
think
going to
risky
put myself
standard's
for an
fine.
extra dice.
Or
4 and 4. Does my level 3 harm must pass through the door
I
coming
think
here?
that the gondolier will look up and say, "Hold." No, she's exactly the right thing. You said it, and like I think you can see her like the wheels are turning. Then I think he says, "It's going to be a lot easier if I take someone back through. If it's not her, it would have to be you."
Take it to Scotland, please, I say, with a smile.
Laughs, looks down in a little satchel, pulls out a ticket that has nothing written on it, and then he writes on it with a little pen, and he says, "Admit one," hands it to you. And he says, "I've been to Scotland. It's fun." And then I think he looks at Constable and says, he says, Go gentle, Constable. Don't you fucking dare. And yeah, he will get you on his gondola. He will start, pulling back, and see her turn around and let out a sigh of like tiredness. Like it's like, it's not that she enjoys the duty all the time necessarily, but she's filled with an iron-hat conviction of that's what you have to do. The job is the job, and the duty is the duty, and that's what keeps the chaos at bay, right? And she knows that the duty is to save the heir of the Ashcrofts, because if she dies, the Empire is seriously at risk. And that's what she believes anyway. We will see her turn around.
Mm-hmm.
And again, so lucky that we live in this metaphorical place, because now she is falling along with you, the serpent. And we have now, I think, effectively cut back to the side, so we'll stick there. Because you see, Constance is like familiar to you, right?
But wait.
I mean, like, have you
is
seen her
familiar
before,
to
or do
me.
you reckon you've never seen her before? Because, like, you have, like, oh, no, you haven't. Yeah.
No, I don't. I mean, she's appeared in the scores that Vickers has been in, but I don't think Vickers has any idea who this woman is.
In that case.
Yeah.
That's why I was taken aback by the
Okay, no,
the question.
Yeah, no
right? I
worries.
was like, wait, do I know her? But
I think then you see a woman
Mhm.
dressed in an old-fashioned inspector's costume, kind of thing that your dad used to say, that's when people had style.
Mhm.
And she is falling. You see Zajidan, by the way, like falling, like Zal being thrown down into the gates of death. I suspect that in a second, that gondolier will like take him as well. And we see this woman turn up and look at the snake, look at the spear, and say, "This area does not have a permit, I don't think, for an animal of this size." You feel like she's almost making a joke. Something that we would normally associate with her.
I mean, I'm still wrestling with this thing. I'm on its head, holding on to the spear, like this, twisting and coiling. And I think Vickers will look up as he says this thing about the permit, and he says, "Oh, sorry, you will have to talk to my husband about that. He handles all the paperwork, bless him."
And you're very lucky that she doesn't know. I mean, like, she knows you're Victoria Evangeline and who your husband is, right? But she's not gonna.
Yeah.
So she says, I suppose the only way to do that is to return to from whence we came. Wait, what is the plan here exactly?
I'm sure you'll find all the paperwork is in order. Whatever Miraz is up to, it's all perfectly legal. It may look suspicious, but he will have filed everything correctly. And I think that is actually true. Like, whatever this weird contraption that Miraz has built, it may be that the device itself is illegal, but I think given how conscientious he is, probably all the components
Apart from the
legally
glove
secured.
box, which has been theft.
So
Part of why I was
Yeah,
so
go on.
stressed.
yes.
Part of why I was so stressed is not just that I was putting it all together, but I was also doing all the documentation as I was doing it at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm setting this up for this all to be
Yeah.
resolved as a big misunderstanding.
The glove
While
box is
wrestling
the
a
only
snake.
part of this machine that is not on, that will not be filed in your taxes.
Yeah.
The joke is, as everyone knows, this is
Oh,
exactly
no.
what I do in real life.
Well, so does she say anything else to me after she questions me about the
she
paperwork?
will say, get this sorted out after we do this, shall we? But I'm very conscientious, and simply because you are a noble and I am oath sworn to ensure your protection does not mean I will give you any lenience. I think what is happening here is that she does recognize that, like, this is not a negotiation that can happen right now while the snake is attempting to murder you. But she is not about to let even a snake prevent her from making clear to you that this is not favoritism.
Yes. Well, what a respectable woman.
She's great once you get to know her, okay?
Yeah, exactly. I'm really impressed with her. I've just met her, but I already like her.
Fantastic. How are you going to deal with this murderous snake? It really wants to eat you.
Yes. Well, I don't know if I'm delivering the coup de grace or if Joan is, because it only has 2 ticks left.
He does only have 2 ticks
I
left. You're
think-
not wrong.
I think like Vickers has got this. I do have one.
No, wait,
another
sorry.
narrative thing I want to
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ticks left on this snake.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
What?
the 2 ticks
That can't
was
be
the
right.
reset. Reset went back down to 2 ticks.
Yeah, but
Oh.
I got a success at driving it towards the gates of death. Did that not tick the thing?
Oh, maybe I didn't tick that. Wait 1 second. Yes, no, you are correct. It's a standard effect, so it's +2. You're 3 ticks away.
Okay, 3 ticks away. Okay,
My
cool.
bad.
You can do your thing first then, Joan, if you have another narrative beat to deal with,
Yes.
and I'll wrestle the snake, I guess.
Because I think Joan has perfect confidence in Vickers' ability to like steer a giant murderous god snake into the gate of death,
Mm-hmm.
into the correct hole. But the gates of death are shattered, and we saw that these are shattered too. And of course, we can't have the snake thrown into the gates of death and then immediately climb back out as a ghost snake. So what Joan is going to do is she is going to do a little warding ritual that she learned long ago as a real jack, where she stabs the snake with a knife to take some of its blood, and she is going to use that blood to bind her spirit bane charm to it, and then jump off to hang the spirit bane charm on the gates to effectively shut them specifically to the snake.
Okay. So
Excellent.
the snake won't pass through the gates of death. It's just going to crumple against them.
No. She's gonna close the door behind him.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. There seems like 2 actions, I'm not going to lie. It's a lot, but it could be 1 action if it's a group action.
Well,
Alright.
I haven't thrown the snake in yet.
No.
I feel like what you are doing is just setting me up by like strengthening the gates.
Yeah, sure. I'm preparing the ritual so that
Yeah.
once
feel
it's
like-
in, it's
Mhm.
done.
Yeah, it's kind of a setup action. I don't have to wrestle it in. I just kind of have to throw it in, and then the ritual will take care of the rest.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Okay, so
So okay, let's frame it as a setup action.
let's say that
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to push here because the ritual can work, but you are only a limited effect because it's not designed to work on God.
Yep, that makes sense.
So I think desperate limited, and I think that if you like, hey, tell me something about this ritual, which is like normally like all the rituals are weird and shit, right? Like, and we don't really have time to like go into it. And also, technically, you need the ability, but I'm not really worried about that. The only thing I want to know is, what weird thing does it normally cost you?
Ooh. I think normally this is like you put it on a place to ward a ghost. I think normally you are binding your own spirit to it as well, your own intent to it.
Oh man, okay.
And the intent that you do means that you can't go very far away from the spirit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't
Doesn't
work.
work. Yeah.
anymore.
I think in this case, and this is particularly costly to you, right? Is that you appear to be binding yourself in some way to this snake. And what that means is that like you absolutely risk being unable to like get its influence off of you, even though you have been very adamant that like you are not going to consume it, you're not going to let it like, you're not going to internalize it in any way, right? You risk some of that internalization now.
Wait, I have a different idea. What if normally this works on ghosts because you have the intent of a human style ghost, like a human power spirit bound to it, and that can't move too far away. What if instead I bind the intent of the god of kings to the kingfisher, meaning that I can no longer access the power because it remains here.
That makes sense. So I think
Yeah, killing 2 goats with 1 stone. I like it.
and I think that like basically on anything less than a success, you will lose the voice of authority. But unfortunately, if you do it perfectly, Right? You will have access to the ability. You just may not have access to the divinity, right? So you are still going to be locking the divinity away, but you may also lose access to the ability depending on how this goes. I think makes sense.
Sure. All right. Let's see. Set of actions, rule-wise. Do they have position and effect?
No, they still have a position effect.
They're just like normal.
So basically, you're at Desperate Limited, and you basically need to push to get to Standard.
Yeah.
The only thing, rule-wise, is that like there's a weird thing of like setup actions have to improve either the position or the effect of the next roll. So what does that mean in terms of like, is that minimum effect standard? Is it limited? We don't know. The way I've mostly done it is that like you have to be at standard effect in order to assist in this score because you're fighting a god. I think in other situations, even limited, we're kind of like, well, it kind of makes sense. Don't worry about it, right?
All right. So I'll push for standard effect, and this is what happens. It's an attune roll, by the way. Because of ritual.
Yes, it should be an attune roll. That must be a desperate attune.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a devil's bargain anybody can think of? I think it's fine. You've got a bunch of attune dice, right? You don't necessarily need another one. Yeah.
I think this is fine. I'm just gonna run it.
Fine.
Sure.
It succeeds, but there is a consequence.
Apparently. I apparently decided that I would be tinted before I before all this. That's all right.
It's fine. I think that like you don't just lose the ability. I think you lose your voice.
Oh, damn.
I think it's so simple as to you are at like desperate, right? And you are trying to steal away something that is so true about yourself and the world, right? Like that, like you can command attention by merely speaking. Like before a resistance, what is happening here is robbed from you the ability to use your voice in any way. Right? Maybe like with effort you can like whisper a bit. Maybe with effort you can make yourself heard. And to be clear, if you learn sign language, you will be perfectly able to communicate. However, I think in this place, explicitly you're binding the intent of the divine, and the intent of the divine is not just authority, it's also voice. So I think it's that.
Yeah. I think this is a big thing. I think, of course, Joan doesn't fully understand what is going to happen to her, but she feels that as she is binding this part of the divine outside herself, it threatens to also pull a part of herself with it. And having had the experiences that she has had in the past few days, she will not allow it. She will fight
Very
back.
fair.
And she will, she'll resist. It will be an insight resist. I have 2 stress left. If I trauma out, it's my 4th trauma.
Okay. I mean, yesterday you said it's dramatic. That's why we do this. And I feel the same way as I did yesterday, which is I am full of tension.
Yes, me too. It's
a 6.
Holy shit.
No stress.
No stress.
All's well that ends well.
6. Amazing.
I mean, nothing can stand up to the force of Joan's will, I guess.
I think I assume that she still loses the ability to.
Yeah, she still loses the ability here. Yeah, for sure.
But she keeps her voice.
Yeah, but like that pull that you feel when you lose your part of yourself and you refuse to. I like this idea that like you just say the word no, and the ability to say no is exactly what you've kept.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredible. And having done this, Vickers.
Yeah.
You and this woman are both locked in battle with the snake, and you have a moment here.
Yeah, so I have a polearm. It has a blade on the end, a pretty big blade, as has been established. And it's for the moment stuck in the snake. And I'm going to pull it out here, and then I'm going to hack into the snake with it. And this is like a metaphorical realm, so I can cut through it. And Joan can read the snake skin. And I think now we see, or Joan rather realizes, although Vickers kind of knows, that along the entire length of the snake, is a long chain of the names of the shrine builder.
Yes.
It is inexorably tied to the snake, and its names are written in an unending chain along the snake's body. And I am going to cut it apart. I am, as I said, breaking the cycle. I am breaking the chain. And I am breaking Shrine Builder.
1 billion%. Yeah.
And so I'm going to hack apart the snake to break the chain. And I think this is also the only way it can actually fit through the gates of death, right? You have to actually break the cycle before it can die.
Yeah,
so I'm using my ability. You know the secret ways to wreck ancient powers, forgotten gods, or demons, ending them.
Oh.
That's... Oh, this is too good. Yeah, okay.
It's called the Destroyer. And yeah.
Desperate?
Desperate.
And the only other time I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
I think you're at standard because of the setup, right? Like, you know exactly how to do this. You have the ability, right? Yeah, desperate standard. You can even push for great effect, whatever that means.
Yeah, well, I need great effect to finish the clock, don't I?
Oh, yes, you do, because you're only 2 ticks away. Yeah.
So I will have to spend stress to do this. And yeah, I guess that's it.
I think what will happen here is, again, she's going to act as your cohort in this case. By her, I mean Constable. And she's very able, but she is not a god killer. So I think in this case, we have like 1 die.
Yep.
Right?
I will, you know what? I will also take the assist from our deity. I haven't taken it yet, and I feel like this is where it makes sense. So I'm going to give myself a bonus dice from that. And I think, okay, just to further the symbolism of me being the destroyer, I think the bonus from my god comes the symbolic power of not only am I cutting apart the snake, but then I am going to dance on its corpse.
Oh,
like
shivers! You've destroyed me. Excellent. Very good. Yeah, appropriate. A plus.
A 5, a 3, and a 4, and Constable gives 1 die, right? 6 from Constable.
Why is Constable the person
Constantly
who manages?
excellent.
Yes.
I mean, I was just thinking, okay, desperate. Like, I mean, the clock's finished. How cool would that be? And then Constable just turns up like a boss, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Her first name is Constance.
Constant Constable. Yes.
Yeah. It's always consistent.
Yeah.
I think you
so
cut.
I cut the snake. I cut the serpent apart, and I will step. My bare feet will trample its body into the dust and into the gates of death as I dance.
What kind of dance is it?
Yeah, it's probably some sort of fucked up ancient temple dance that is, you know, I'm in the realm of the metaphysical, so this is probably not even possible to do in the physical realm. Whatever the hell Vickers is doing.
you have more limbs than you should.
Yeah, it's like all the vultures are dancing at once.
Yeah.
100%. I think like the reason that Constable gives you the 6 is that as you do this, like this thing of breaking the cycle resonates in her, and she's got a massive eye for detail. And what she's going to do is, as you cut the snake skin apart, she finds that one scrap which has Miraz's name on it, and in one flash grabs it and then like makes sure that it's only Miraz Chakraborty on it, right? Like and she keeps that, and she's like, well, we're not gonna get rid of this one. This one's fine, right?
Yeah. Obviously, that was the consequence here, right? I was figuring this could actually harm Miraz, which I was totally going to resist.
Yeah.
But I, mean, I don't have to, because Constable has my back. She always gets her man.
And I think she looks at it, and she looks up at you and says, cannot permit anything to happen to your husband before I get a chance to question him. Shall we return?
Yeah.
Is everything done?
Yeah.
Like...
I will look at her in like my cosmic every incarnation self, and I'll say, oh, nothing will happen to him. Don't you worry. Love is the most dangerous power in the universe.
Oh, excellent. Very good. We're just going straight for it, huh? Yeah, A+.
Yes.
There's a very good Sophie poem I'm reminded of here where, you know, like the last line is something like, why should I go to see God? God, if he wants to see me, he should come in the form of the person I love, right? Oh, very good. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that then we can cut back to Miraz, right? Because you still have now this opportunity to speak to Zajidan, and the snake has gone through. And again, really good that we're in metaphysical land, because while the snake has gone through and the gates are shut behind it, it's not shut for everybody, and it is not shut for Zajidan, because he has yet to pass through. And the gondolier and Freya are in conversation quietly at one side, waiting for him, but not rushing him in any way, right? They know that there is something about to happen here. And you should roll, and I think the roll here will tell us exactly how this goes, because I think there's a role. I think you are in a desperate position. And I think the desperate level consequence is that you will not speak to your father and you will speak to Zal instead.
Okay. Consort,
Ah?
right? Yeah, I guess that makes sense, right?
And
If this is a role, then I'm totally assisting you, by the way. Like, getting you in
Excellent.
touch with your father. I think that I'm doing that by, at this point, I'm just kind of doing that by, like, bending space
time,
and
yeah,
time.
yeah, that does appear what is happening.
This is...
Mhm. I do love that, but I have not yet used my. I mean, I think now it's my turn to get the
Yes.
god's favor,
Oh, true.
and I think that's more resonant. If
Yeah,
that's
that's
okay.
great.
Makes sense. Take the
Okay.
assistance from the deity. Cool.
Is consort okay, or would Attune make more
I think
sense?
both work. I think that if you're consorting, let me say this. I think if you're consorting, you will get in touch with A Zajidan, no problem. I think if you're attuning,
Mhm.
on a full failure, it's possible that you don't get in touch with anyone, right? Because you are trying to find exactly the right person. Consort seems to be like you're relying on your
Okay.
connection, so you will find someone.
I think consort is the one that makes the most sense here versus like supernatural power. Okay, so desperate level consort with
Mhm.
standard effect. Bonus die from a dice from God.
Dice from God.
Yeah. Those bargains.
And Devil's Bargains. So many offer up, and yet here we are. I think that a very standard Devil's Bargain here might be that you have this moment and then you forget it. The feeling remains,
Mm.
but the exact details, you won't be able to recall them.
Oh man.
Like, one of the reasons I'm offering this is that I think it's super interesting in a way, right?
Mm. No, I think I want to keep the thoughts that will come here. I will, however, push myself.
Yeah.
So 2 bonus dice.
Sixes.
Crit.
Ooh,
You
incredible.
can
Wow.
meet both of them, I think. Is the logical
Yes.
consequence here, right? Like, you are not like
Mhm.
you can meet both the one who sacrificed his soul and the one who sacrificed his body, in a way.
Mhm.
Though in this case, they did both, right? So we see Zal and look up spirit mask in one hand, the weird lightning hook in the other, and he puts both of them back. He like folds them up, right? And he takes out a candle. The candle is inside like a jar, and he opens the jar and brings the candle out, and this is unlit. He lights it. When the candle is lit, we see the other Zajidan come into view, as if the candle is the thing that's throwing light on him. They look at each other, and just a moment of like, well, that's what happened. Like, Zajidan completely understands, like, oh, okay, I get it. I don't need more to be explained, you know. And he looks at his alter self and he says, my son will be along shortly. And yeah, I think
Mhm. And how do I arrive?
I think you should tell me this, right? Like, I think
Do I just Mhm.
because his divine intervention.
escalator? I take the escalator down here.
Amazing.
It's like there's no fanfare. It's not fancy. Just riding down an escalator. It's exactly as boring as it should be, and I love it.
Very good. They both look up at you, and Zal says, I always imagined my children would be somewhat taller. And Zajidan kind of just laughs. And as you approach, I think Zajidan will like take you into his arms and like hug you like long and true.
Yeah.
And say, "I'm proud of you, my son."
And I think for the only time in his life, so we have seen Miraz be self-possessed, only when Shrine Builder is actually possessing him. Otherwise, he has no idea what the fuck's going on. But this time he gets it. He's like, he holds his father. There's tears in his eyes, but like, he's not like, oh, what's going on? Why are there two of you? Which is what he would do in any other circumstance. But he hugs Zajidan, and then he draws Zal into an embrace as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then he stands in front of the both of them, such that he can look at them both at the same time.
Mhm.
And then he says, I came back to try to save your life. And in the end, you saved me.
And Zal, I think, used to being a dad. He kind of like stumbles over his words, and then Zajidan will kind of like pat him on the shoulder, and he will say, "Coming back did save my life." Of course it did.
I think Miraz then says, there's so many things that I want to tell you, to ask you, but there's never going to be enough time. I understand that now. You told me on the balcony a few months ago that you're getting old and this is just what happens. And I did a lot of things after that, hoping that, well, that you were wrong. But you were right. And no matter what we do, there never is enough time to say everything.
I think Zal at this says, there is enough time. Say the things that matter. That is why you are here.
You're right. And I turn to Zajidan and I say, I love you, father.
I love you more than words can say, Miraz. And tell your wife and my brothers, tell Padmapriya and Padmamukhi, tell that Dr. Triparna, I know she worked very hard. Tell them that they should not miss me too much.
Can I ask you for two things before you go?
That I have is yours.
Just advice, just words. And then he kind of gives a smile because we established that words aren't enough. But
Yeah.
what else do we have?
Yeah.
Can you give me some? Uncle Abbas isn't here, I am, and it's not quite fair on him. He's known you longer, he's loved you longer, and I know he would want to be here. Can you tell me something or give me something from you to him?
I think Zal will do this. I think he says, love is not a thing that one can measure or compare. I love my brother. I have known him all my life, and I love you, and I have known you. He pretends to look at his watch, and he says, maybe 10 minutes. And I think he says, when I was a child, Abbas and I used to run up and down the temple, creating havoc. And, our parents would get very upset with us. And whenever they would shout at us, we would be in our room feeling terrible. Abbas would look at me and ask me whether, okay, Bhaiya, did we do something wrong? I never had really the heart to tell him that maybe jumping off the balcony was a terrible idea. If your Abbas is anything like mine, to tell him that I never regretted a second of it. I would jump off that balcony again if I could.
I will tell him. And then Miraz gives a smile. So we established that Zajidan is an artificer.
Yes.
And I've decided that he has always been a watchmaker.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the perfect thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look at the watch that Zal is wearing,
Mhm.
and I'm going to ask for it.
Yeah. And I think Zajidan actually was also looking at it, and he says, "Oh, can I have that for a second?" No, Zajidan speaks in an Indian accent. Sorry. He says, "Oh, let me look at that." And because you're in a metaphorical space, he peers at the watch, turns it over, and he's got somehow tools, mind control, all of this. He opens it, and I think he engraves on the inside a little like a little snake, like a snakelet, right? And underneath he writes from one father to another, and then he, closes everything back up, probably tightens a few screws because you can never not do that kind of thing, and hands it to you and says, "Don't follow me before you have your own kids, huh? You deserve that torture." He says it with tears in his eyes and yeah, he's smiling, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think he's also Mira's eyes are also full of tears because actually he wanted to give this to Abbas.
Yeah.
But now he
No,
can't.
he can't. Sorry. Yeah. And I think probably
It's okay.
probably they knew, right? That you were trying to do that, and they were like, "No, I mean it's his grief is his and yours is yours, and you can't try and make up for it preemptively."
Mhm. Yeah. And I think Miraz kind of looks at the watch and then he says, "And the other thing I was going to ask you for, I realized I don't need." And then he smiles.
I think Zajidan says, "You can have it anyway if you want."
Oh, just well, I have it anyway. That's the thing. And he smiles. I was going to ask if whatever I do next, I have your blessing, but I'm going to be presumptuous and assume that I do.
I think he laughs and he says, "No, I would never have dared get my father and imply that after this I was going to make love to somebody, but changes in the air."
Then Miraz kind of gives a smile and says, "I want to stay here much longer. I want to stay here forever, really. But I think there's a woman with an open wound on her throat whose life needs to be saved, so that my uncle and your brother does not go to prison for the rest of his life."
And I think he says, "Yes, that would be bad." And then he turns around and looks at the gondolier and Freya says, "I think we've kept our passengers long enough. Currently, we're going to Scotland."
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Indeed.
Sure.
Yeah. And they both give you one final hug, and they, get on this gondola, and I think you see it go into the distance. It will feel like forever, and it will feel like not long enough.
I'm backing up on my escalator. The stair can go 2 ways.
Excellent.
Amazing.
Very good.
Oh, what a touching scene. Thank you
Yeah,
for
no,
that.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed both of them actually.
That was really nice.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was really good.
And I get to
Genuinely-
keep the watch.
And
Haha.
you can keep the watch.
Oh.
Yeah.
Epic loot dropped.
I mean, it'll give you a +1 to your timekeeping, which is really annoying because it means you're always going to be 1 minute early to think.
Okay. So I guess I emerged back into reality with it has the same energy as that community
Yes,
gift
yeah, indeed.
with the
Yeah, when Troy comes in, he's like, "What the hell has happened?" Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yes.
I think what has happened actually
But I'm happy to special.
is that when these guys come back, Constable's soul comes back into her body, right? So I think what's happening is that actually Padmapriya and Padmamukhi are like, oh shit, trying to like revive her in some fashion, and then it turns out they actually can, even though the blow should have been fatal. It's a miracle.
I think it's Dr. Triparna Sen.
Oh, of course it's no, you're right. That's what she was doing.
Get out of my way!
That's what she was doing all along. See, I knew I would forget her.
I very much imagine that what happened is when Constable came back to life, as it were, she took a sharp inhale of breath, and I was like, "Oh, you're back again! And you all enjoy killing me a second time?" And then Triparna said,
Yeah.
Drag him away, no.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I guess so now, Joan and Vickers, do you just make your way back in a very normal and mundane fashion?
I think we emerge from this black void in the sanctum.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The sanctum has this black void, so we just kind of step out of the stepwell, and Vickers has a slightly puzzled look on her and goes, "Well, that was all very strange. Let's never speak of that again." She brushes herself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you quite all right? Yeah.
But I'm still not entirely clear on why we did that. But it was obvious that you all thought it was the right moment.
Yes, I've grown rather tired of old bad habits repeating themselves. Well,
It does feel freer now. This whole
Yes, it-
place.
does, doesn't it? I suppose we'd best go see to Miraz. I imagine he must be quite shaken.
Yes, we should.
And so
Right.
we will go do that.
Yeah, to be clear, it is absolute chaos. I think Padmapriya and Padmamukhi are trying to calm down both Maud and Johannes. Inspector is dazed and confused. She's had a very weird near-death experience that she doesn't necessarily know actually happened to her. Triparna Sen is washing her face and is just take long, deep, calm breaths. And Miraz is just, vibing. What's Abbas also doing? Vibing?
I think what I'm doing is I go up to Abbas actually.
Yeah, they should have a conversation.
Yeah. Is Abbas I'm gonna fucking go? How's
No,
Abbas
I
reacting
think-
to all this?
Some time has passed, right? Because
Yeah.
Triparna Sen has treated Constance and is sitting down. I think Abbas is just kind of sitting down and what's happened with Zadijan's body? Have the bees come and
I think
eaten it?
so. I think what happens here, if I may,
Yeah.
is that the bees aren't quick. Takes a while.
Yeah.
They covered the entire body, and then they just slowly eat the body. They don't get. I don't think they eat the bones. The bones are taken away by the Rakshasas. So I'm sure we're going to see Daddy Denda in a few.
Mhm.
And I think prior to this conversation, prior to the experience that Miraz had, he would have probably been "No, I want those bones. You can't. Yeah." But now he's I think now he finally understands what all of this is about. It's people die, they move on. The Death Seekers bees shroud the corpse so that, essentially you can't even see that there was a person there. The memory is erased. And then there's the bones, and then they're cast into the voodoo. And that's it.
Yeah,
It's an
I'm
ending.
gonna say that in Iruvia, it is probably when someone dies of natural causes, it is or not when someone dies and you're present, it is customary. You wait until the bees come. That's the custom. So Abbas is there, right, waiting for.
Yeah. The bees have arrived, I think, right? I think now
Yeah,
we're just,
I would say that it's custom to watch
Right.
the process happen, with a
Right.
sign of respect, right?
Right, okay. So I think Miraz also joins.
Mm.
And he's not calmly, dispassionately watching. It's still,
No, it's
upsetting.
meant to be difficult, yeah.
Yeah, it's upsetting. And I think he puts his arm around Abbas.
Abbas is very surprised with this sign of affection, Miraz, Did you talk to him? Did he say anything?
He told me it's a good idea to jump out of windows.
Oh. Huh. Yes, it looks like he's jumped out of one himself in a manner of speaking. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know what to say in this situation like this. How are you? How are you? Because
I'm fine. How are you?
I mean, I've been expecting him to go for a long time. He's been sick for a very long time, hasn't even before we told you and before you came back. But when it happens, it's never like what you imagine.
He says,
look.
and I think Miraz just says yeah, because Abbas has been there. Like when Abbas has seen his parents die, he's seen many friends die. Abbas remembers like Miraz's mom dying, which
Yeah.
which is something we don't talk about anymore. Anyway, it's not important for us, but like yeah. So this is probably the first time someone important to Miraz has died that he has been cognizant of.
Yeah.
But please go on.
Miraz, I know that we don't always get along, but this may not sound like much to you, but I've always, I've always loved you, as
I love you too.
like I never had any children of my own, but I never felt like once you came back and while you were here as a kid, I never felt like I was missing out because you were here, and I want you to know that I'm here too for for anything that you might need. Like we will, I'm sure, disagree and I'll annoy you, but we are family and we'll always be here.
Yeah. And I think Miraz kind of just looks at the bees and he just nods. And he doesn't say anything because because now is not the right time to ask him. So about me moving back to Dustwell.
Yeah.
Maybe this should be when Vickers and Joan reappear.
Yeah.
We can even
So-
epilogue that, we'll see.
Yeah. So you had clarified you do not want to move back, right? You said you want to stay.
No, I sorry?
What did you say to Sajidin? You said you wanted to stay.
Oh no, I meant stay in that moment.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I see. Hmm.
But no, I think we probably would roleplay the conversation, we'll see.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I think
So
Mhm.
Vickers comes back, and Vickers and Joan come back into the room and see all the chaos and all the wiring, all the machinery, the inspector being tended to and being rather dazed. And Vickers looks at her and kind of raises an eyebrow, like, "Oh, well, that's odd. Her again."
Well, better days than dead.
Yeah. And then we'll walk straight up to Miraz and embrace him, because I mean she can see what has happened, right? It's plainly obvious. I don't even think she says anything. She will just walk up and like hold him.
And where were you, my love?
What?
Uh.
I was in the temple praying.
Oh,
At least I think that's what that was.
I'm sorry to tell you, because he just naturally assumes you are praying for Sajid's recovery.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to tell you, but and then he kind of like gestures at the mound of bees.
Yeah. Well, darling, it was always a long shot. We both knew that.
Yeah.
You did the best you could.
I did, and that's the important thing. And then he nods.
Mm-hmm. But I think you would have wanted it this way. Well, maybe aside from that woman, I don't know her, but other than that, he was surrounded by people he loved.
Yes. So, how much pull do you have in Imperial City?
Oh, well, I'm sure I can put in a good word or two with the diplomats.
Because I think we may have to smooth over a spot of assault on a police officer, and attempted murder.
Donkey,
From
this woman
behind
attempted-
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Vickers turns and says, "Hold on, are you telling me this woman attempted to
No,
bundle
no.
in here and arrest someone in the middle of a scientific experiment? How
Yeah.
irresponsible!"
Yes, that is what happened. You go. You go deal with her. Go on.
Yeah, and I think Vickers will approach her with exactly this energy, right? And be like, "Well, I perfectly well understand you have a job to do, but do you realize how dangerous this scientific equipment is?"
And she's just gonna
yeah.
say,
Mhm.
Lady Ashcroft, this is
Can she
precisely
speak?
why. She's trying. I don't know if she's succeeding.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this is precisely why it's very important to. And then she's like dropping off, and you better like slap her because if people go to sleep when they have a concussion, it's really bad.
Yeah, no, I will slap her. And I'll like shake her awake, and I would say like, "Well, anyone can see it's plain as day here that there's been a terrible accident, and you really ought to have been more careful." And I'm just going to basically tell her this is not so much Vickers lying and just her believing this is what happened, right? She obviously ran into the lab, and there was a terrible accident. This has happened before, and I'm going to convince her, in fact, that it's not that someone attacked her; it's that she ran in here and she clearly had some sort of bizarre accident. Why else would she have visions of snakes in wells and weird shit? She must have inhaled something dangerous.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
For the first time in this session, you are in a controlled position. This is because you are gaslighting a woman with a concussion.
Yeah. Controlled standard to tell her what has happened.
And Mira's kind of hobbled. He kind of like comes over and he hands you something, and he says, "And these are the smelling salts that Dr. Triparnasen recommended for the inspector. It's transporter."
Absolutely. Okay, so you're assisting me.
Yes.
Great. And obviously I'm rolling command. I don't think this is swaying. I'm lecturing her. So
Yeah.
hmm
And
okay. So
controlled
standard, you said?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I'll roll it. I'll roll a 6. So
Casual. I mean, why do we bother rolling on the show, really? It's just gonna...
So, yeah, what I want her to believe is that, maybe we're still liable for having an unsafe lab, but like clearly someone didn't attack her. Clearly this is, the dangerous fumes or whatever she ran into, and she had a terrible fall. Yeah. There might be some consequences for us. We might get a write-up on like less than safe lab equipment, but there's no assault, no attempted murder, nothing like that.
No. Nobody thinks that you invented a machine that can cure hollowing. You better put that away quite quickly, by the way.
Didn't work, clearly.
Yeah.
No, so it's only batteries.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say only one thing here is that it didn't work, clearly. But Triparna Sen is the kind of person who will say, it didn't work, so clearly I need to work on it more. And if nothing happens, in about 6 months, she will have a fully functioning de-hollowing machine, because all you need to do is try it again. Like, there is nothing wrong with it.
She's welcome to my documentation. That's fine. It didn't work. I don't care. I can't patent to this.
Plus, it turns out that your revolution has a important and powerful new prong, which is de-hollowification. Fucking lucky.
Yep.
Excellent.
Getting out from under the church makes sense.
Okay, I think. Let's see. We have not had. So I think Mira's kind of like sees Joan, walks over to her, and he says, "Oh, hello there, cousin Joan. I don't know if you heard, but Baba died."
She has. Sorry,
No.
Go ahead.
Please go ahead. I'm just muttering to myself.
She has been kind of hovering, not physically, but like, in the social hovering way.
Listen, at this point, it could. I'm prepared to believe anything of this person.
This is why I am clarifying.
Yes.
She has been kind of socially hovering, making multiple attempts to like go up to Miraz and offer comfort if he needs it. And he comes up to her. I heard. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But I appreciate it. Where were you all this time, though? We really missed you, he says, almost meaning it.
Oh no,
I mean, he doesn't normally think about people.
sure.
No, fair.
And he had more important things to
Yeah, more
feel
important.
sad about.
It's a long story, but basically, I had to get rid of some things that were weighing on my mind, and they're gone now. I think they're gone now.
There's a lot of that going around. I think it's
Yeah.
good.
Oh, things change. It is written.
Hmm. And then Miraz stands in front of Joan, tries to think of something to say, then asks, eaten anything interesting lately?
No, I try not. I try not to do that anymore.
Oh, and then he kind of leans in and says, the tapeworm's gone.
I think so.
Oh, good.
Well, I think I'm getting it under control. I don't know if it's going to be gone anytime soon.
I mean, it's a tapeworm. It's a parasite. It's not a pet.
It's a persistent one.
Listen, I went to university, right? There was a guy. He had a pet tapeworm. He called him Teddy, and he tried to make it a thing, and then he died, but Teddy didn't.
That's actually terrifying, Minas.
You've seen worse. And then Miraz realizes that this is a very awkward conversation, and Joan's cool, but also Joan's very terrifying, and she has a pet tapeworm. He just walks away.
Minas?
Yes. Yes. He says awkwardly. He's like, I thought we were done.
Do you want a hug? Or are you
He thinks about this for a bit. Yes, that would be nice, he says. And then I guess we hug.
Here you go, she says.
Is it a nice hug? Do we feel good about this, or are we both very awkward?
I think Joan is very warm, but she's also very open.
I think we get into it. It's awkward, and then it feels good because we both realize it's awkward.
Mhm.
And then we break off, and then we do what we normally do, which is not talk to each other. Excellent.
How did you murder a god and then find yourself unable to just say things like, man, I enjoy hanging out with you?
I think that
Is that not obvious
that
that one of
tracks.
these is much more terrifying than the other?
Yeah.
that perfectly tracks. Why would you be murdering gods if you could have a normal social life?
Yeah.
Correct.
Wait, no, that's the wrong way. Okay, never mind.
Uh,
So I guess
Mhm.
that's the scene.
yeah.
I think Vickers and Miraz probably have like a conversation. Which I don't know if we off-screen that or we have it out. Or that probably happens over time afterwards.
What conversation?
About whether or not we stay or go.
Oh, I think we definitely need to play that out.
Yeah. Okay.
So, how does Miraz break the idea that he is planning on moving away?
Yeah. So I guess what happens over the next few weeks? Do we
Mhm.
paint the scene a bit to set that up, like what's aftermath is? So I
Mhm.
think at some point over the next few weeks,
Mm-hmm.
Miraz comes up to Vickers while she's, I don't know, probably like, once we both like,
Yeah.
a quiet moment for us, probably in the bed. And then I say, I've been thinking, Vickers, I've been thinking that it's time to go back for me.
What? Vickers
That's
looks
all.
genuinely surprised at this, I think.
To does well. I mean, yes, I'm the high priest, but I came back for Baba. He's not here anymore. And I mean, what good am I as the priest anyway? And we all know I didn't want to be, and I'm not good at it. And I think,
Well,
Hmm?
well, the way
Go
I
on.
see it, Vicar says, she places a hand on your hand, is with now that you really are the high priest and it's not just a formality anymore, I rather thought you get to decide what it is the high priest does.
Mhm.
She looks
And
at you like somewhat confused, right?
Yeah. And then he smiles and says, yes, I do have that power, but it's a responsibility as well. There's generations of my family who have done it a certain way. People have certain expectations, and
Yes,
the city has certain expectations. And
but that doesn't mean you have to do it that way. You always said you wanted your people to modernize. I mean, I suppose they will have to either way. It's just, it seems like such a pity.
yeah,
He sighs and looks out the window.
yeah, and I think he joins you at the window and kind of like gives you a hug from behind as he says, you're right, I have thought about it, and I know that if I am the high priest, I can make it work somehow, but I realized I don't want to. This is where I grew up. My family have always lived here, but it was never for me. And I can be the best high priest I can be, but I'll never be as happy being that as I would be if I went back to Dustfall and I became a Sparkwright and I made things. I can make things here. I can modernize this temple. But you understand, right? It's that I can be the best at this that I can be, or I can truly be myself amongst the people who don't look at me and always I have to explain to them what's going on. I'm from this city, but that's not who I am deep down.
I know that. I always just thought, well, if you won't change for the city, I always thought the city could change for you. Obviously, we'll go wherever you are happy, but it's just a pity to see that this city will be modernized by people like my father who, well, don't really understand it.
Right, he says, because that hadn't occurred to him.
Yeah.
Because he was going to say something like, yes, the city can change for me, but like, why should it?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Mhm.
Like, I'm just a guy. I'll just go where the
Yeah.
vibes are already like
Yeah.
mine, and it'll be fine. But when you mention this, then you're like, that's true. People like your father and what was that ghastly woman's name? Begum Baguette?
Yes. Yes, I just don't
Right.
know if I would like to see the Empire change everything here. It seems better to me that if Sparkcraft were brought here by locals who love both the city and the sciences.
And Miraz almost opens his mouth to say he doesn't love Udu Asha, but that's not really true, as he has, I suppose, finally decided to admit to himself.
Yeah. And Vickers will squeeze his hand and she will say, well, whatever you decide, I'm sure it will be for the best, but I was really rather hoping we could break some of the negative cycles that have been going on here, all this conflict, all these revolutions that just put different people in power. I thought perhaps this city really could change, Perhaps it really could be different. Better in all sorts of ways.
Yeah, and I think Miraz is looking outside the window, thinking about it. And then and then there's a roar as someone drives in front of the temple in a Sparkcraft car.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And we watch it go.
Yeah. I have one more thing to say, though. I have one more thing in the scene.
Yeah.
She holds Miraz's hand and she says, well, I've made peace with that. I've broken the cycles of the past, although there is one more thing. Speaking of cycles, Miraz, I think mine is a little late.
Oh.
And she would look him in the eye.
Oh. A little late? Is that? Oh, and then he said, do we need a calendar? Do we need? And then it's like, oh wait, that's
Yeah.
Oh.
Normal fire here. A Sestina. by P. William Bearhart. O King, build me more Templar,
more handsome and muscular. Build me a chest made of barley fire.
Set it ablaze each morning for sunlight.
Build me legs quick as a chariot,
light as it does.
long as a current runs through a river.
It
Must all mean something if I am the third son of my father.
It must all mean something if my body is a ravaged
Which
temple.
temple? What does it mean?
does it mean if his body is a ravaged temple? Wretched chariots we carry burdened with copper and birch bark inside muscled and fatty hearts.
Psychon wrote about bodies being possessed by light.
Possessed by light.
I should have known. Those antlers were never copper, but always fire.
Your tongue always tasted of fire. The ash of it, the lie of it.
But 100 legs of running men gives me light around the temples.
I have a weakness for muscular. I have a brain full of char rioting in an underwater circus.
I hold my breath as this chariot is unplugged from the wall.
The immediate silence.
No more fire here.
I wanted you to be muscular and fit, healthy as an ox. The attraction I
I
feel
feel
for
for it. We can
We
only
can
build.
only build the most modest of temples when all we have is moonlight.
moonlit.
Chariot.
Racing toward a temple fire,
The idea of it,
Muscular. I've always loved Epsilon.
not because he's handsome and muscular,
But because he had a king's heart. Let there be light.
Light.
Let it arrive in a horse-drawn carriage. Let it arrive as fire.
O king, build my body a
A
temple.
temple. Make my heart more corpuscular than muscular.
Make me a chariot light of
Light
art.
of fire.
It's so lonely and cold inside this scalpel ruined temple.
Scalpel ruined temple.